Hello, I'm Sarah, a 45-year-old successful businesswoman. I run a thriving company with my best friend Georgie. However, my life wasn't always like this. 3 years ago, my husband left me, and in my pursuit of revenge, I found a new beginning. But let's start from the beginning. I met Steve in high school. We often crossed paths but didn't start a relationship until about 10 years later, at our high school reunion. I remembered him as a nerdy, skinny guy, so I was pleasantly surprised to see him taller and more muscular. We got to talking, and Steve shamelessly flirted with me, which I liked. I flirted back, and before long, we had set up a date for the next day. We met at a gorgeous Italian restaurant, enjoying pasta, wine, and each other's company. We shared the same interests, and during that date, I asked him about his big dream. "So tell me, what's your big dream?" I asked. "Oh, that's something I have to think about," he replied. "Come on, you must have some sort of big dream that nags you every day." "Well, what's yours?" "Give me an example." "I want to own my own house." "Now it's your turn." "Not a bad dream. Then I guess I want to run my own successful business. I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck." "Oh, I get that. Maybe if we last, I could help you with that." "I would like that. Not because you'd help me. I don't really care about that. I would like us to last." I couldn't help but smile. With a degree in business management, I had the knowledge, and Steve worked a minimum wage job doing data entry. I understood the struggle of living paycheck to paycheck, having grown up that way. I liked him and wanted to help him. That one date turned into many more, and soon we were practically living together. Eventually, I asked him to move into my larger apartment. About a year and a half later, I decided to help Steve start a business. We spent months brainstorming ideas, and I invested a portion of my savings into the venture. Steve had friends who were willing to help and invest too. I remember the night we registered his business. It was nerve-wracking, but we knew we had each other. We poured long hours into the business, and though it didn't take off immediately, we persevered. Gradually, we began to gain traction, and soon we were hiring more employees. When we had about 10 employees, Steve was thrilled. I laughed and told him he was capable of much more. To celebrate our achievement, Steve took me back to the Italian restaurant where we had our first date. It was there that he proposed to me. I was beyond happy and cried as I said yes. Juggling a fledgling company and wedding planning was tough. We lost countless nights of sleep and even considered eloping. But we wanted a big celebration. A year after our engagement, we had our dream wedding, surrounded by family and friends. Afterward, we focused fully on the business, and our hard work paid off. We started making millions. With our newfound wealth, the first thing we did was buy our own house. As the business grew, we were able to step back a bit. Then one day, Steve approached me. "We need to talk about something." "Is everything okay?" I asked, concerned. "Yeah, it's just that I think you should stay home." "Why?" "Am I doing something wrong?" "No, it's just that you deserve to rest. You've been working so hard." "But I love working with you." "I do too, but I don't work much anymore, and you still do." "I don't like that." "So you want me to quit because you feel emasculated?" "No, I just want you to relax a little. You deserve it. Please for me." Reluctantly, I agreed. I took my new free time seriously, reading, catching up on shows, and treating myself to spa days. But along with the relaxation came a nagging feeling that something was wrong with Steve. He began withdrawing from me, spending less time at home and more at work. Or so I thought. One night, he came home from an office party reeking of alcohol and a woman's perfume. "Why do you smell like a woman? Is there something you need to tell me?" I asked. "What? No, nothing like that." "Is that a lipstick stain on your neck?" "Of this, some girl was dared by her friends to do it. And you just let it happen." I wasn't going to deny a woman a free drink. Unbelievable. "Are you sure nothing else happened? Are you accusing me of cheating? How dare you?" "No, I just wanted to be reassured." "Just leave me. I'm going to sleep." I just wanted reassurance, but Steve's defensiveness only made me more suspicious. My heart ached at the thought that he might be cheating on me. I hoped and prayed to every god that it wasn't true, but as days passed, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling. Some days, Steve still came home smelling like another woman. Eventually, my curiosity got the better of me. I hired a private investigator. I know it was a gross violation of trust, but I needed to know. If Steve refused to tell me, I'd find out myself. The PI followed Steve around for a month. I wanted to know everything at the end of the month so I wouldn't have to endure the pain of hearing bad news repeatedly. That month was the longest month ever. Each day felt like an eternity, but eventually we reached the end. The PI asked to meet at a crowded cafe. I arrived early and waited anxiously. When he finally arrived, he carried a large folder. Inside were pictures of Steve kissing, going on dates, and even entering hotels with various women. My stomach dropped. I felt like throwing up. The PI looked at me with sympathy, but it got worse. I recognized the women. They were our employees. What was Steve thinking? Did he not realize how badly he was jeopardizing the company? Most of all, I was beyond hurt that he was cheating on me. Was this why he asked me to stop working, so he could sneak around behind my back? I was disgusted by what I had learned. It was a gross misuse of power dynamics in the workplace, and the betrayal after all the sacrifices I made for him was cruel. The following weeks were a blur of crying, sleeping, ice cream, and binge-watching TV. I don't know how the idea came to me, but after weeks of wallowing, I knew I couldn't keep feeling sorry for myself. Maybe confronting him would help. Maybe if he realized he would lose me, he'd change. Ha! What a fool I was. Steve, I need you to sit down and listen to me. Make it quick. I have somewhere to be. Yeah, probably at one of your young employees' houses. What? Yeah, I know about your affairs, which, by the way, is gross. Just because you make a lot of money now doesn't mean you get to abuse that power and take advantage of your employees, or to even forget how you got to this position in the first place. Look, I wasn't even trying to keep this a secret. I'm just surprised it took you so long to figure it out. Even you didn't care about me. Don't take this the wrong way, but after getting my position, I realized my worth. I deserve so much better than you. Excuse me. Well, you're not ugly, but you're also not exactly attractive to me. Anyway, what do you want to do about this situation? You are unbelievable. Does our relationship mean anything to you? It was fun while it lasted. I'm guessing you want a divorce. Don't worry, the papers will be here by tomorrow at the latest. As a token of gratitude, you can have the house. I have to go. Bye. I was burning with anger. I wanted to hurt him. I didn't care how. I needed to get back at him. All my sadness and hurt turned into an intense anger that made my skin feel like it was on fire. In the days I waited for the divorce papers to arrive, I started plotting my revenge. My first idea was to target his business. His business had changed him and made him this entitled man. So I would tear it down and through it, tear him down. I would love to watch him crash and burn. Since I already had experience starting a business, thanks to the late nights spent with Steve, starting a second one would be a piece of cake. This time, instead of being two inexperienced people, I invited my best friend Georgie, who had opened many successful businesses herself, to help me out with my new venture. I decided to let Georgie be the CEO because I needed my name to be less visible so I could silently take down Steve's company. By the time Steve and I had settled our divorce, I was the owner of our house. I decided to sell it and use the money as an investment in my new firm. It was beyond risky, and I lost a lot of sleep in the first few months, but our sharp business minds allowed Georgie and me to make smart decisions. Pretty quickly, our company began to grow and make huge profits. Another thing to note was that Steve's company began to nosedive. Steve partied too hard and began to neglect his job, which is probably why he never saw us as a true rival. If I had been in his place, a company like mine would have made me panic, but Steve was too busy partying and sleeping with any young woman who gave him attention. Georgie and I steadily expanded our firm, hiring more people and expanding our markets. We also monitored the stocks of Steve's company closely. Georgie and I came up with our next course of action after a few too many glasses of wine. You know, I am grateful for you, I said. Oh honey, I hardly did much. Most of this is your hard work. Plus, I would never turn down the opportunity to get back at Steve. You never really liked him, did you? I'm just saying he manipulated you into funding his firm and working there for free. It was so risky, and then he completely ditched you. Are you sure this is all the revenge you want to get on him? What do you mean? We're beating his firm in the markets and will soon be the #1 firm. What more can we do? Look, this is the kind of revenge a friend would get on their other crappy friend, not the kind of betrayed wife would get on her ex-husband. How about we buy out his company? Buy him out? How are we possibly going to do that? We don't have that kind of money, and I don't think Steve would be willing to give up his cash cow. We definitely don't have the money to buy it outright, and I think the same about Steve. But you know what we do have money for? Stocks. How much? We buy a majority of the stocks, and then we get to make executive decisions. Holy cow, you're a genius. I definitely am. You're welcome. It took a couple of months of monitoring Steve's company stocks, and we began to see a huge dip in the prices. We decided to swoop in and buy about 25% of the stocks. This gave us an exclusive veto and a place at the table to make executive decisions as planned. With each passing month, Steve's neglect of his company worsened its profits. They eventually had to ask us for funds to keep the company afloat. Did we have the funds? Of course. Did we give it to them? Of course not. We also blocked their efforts to raise funds via their other investors and stockholders. As a result, their company began to crash. Georgie and I watched gleefully as they struggled to stay afloat. Desperation set in, and Georgie requested a meeting with Steve's board of directors. Steve never showed up, but in a last-ditch effort to save the company, the board decided it was best to sell. Since Georgie and I held the majority vote, Steve's input wasn't needed. We bought the company for practically nothing. The rush of happiness and satisfaction at what we had accomplished was overwhelming. Just 2 days after the paperwork for buying Steve's company was processed, Steve showed up at my house. I don't know how he found my address because after my business took off, I bought myself a new house, known only to a few family members and Georgie. I figured Steve reached out to one of my family members who inadvertently gave him my address. Steve, what are you doing here? I don't know how to tell you this. It's embarrassing, actually. Spit it out, Steve. I don't have time for this. Well, I've been thinking a lot recently. That's really good. Wow, I'm so proud of you. Please let me speak. I've been thinking, and I realize that I really miss having you in my life. If you don't mind, would you come back to me? How come the sudden missing? Is it because your company is dying? How do you know about the company? The situation hasn't been released anywhere yet. Well, to answer your first question, I'm not interested in coming back to you. To answer your second question, you're going to miss more than me. You're going to miss your company. Huh? I just bought it. What? Oh, Steve, you really should have paid more attention to your firm instead of partying and sleeping around. Why would you do that? You knew it was my biggest dream to own a successful company. You were unbelievable. I tried to tell you it was unfair that you were leaving me after I helped you start your business, but you didn't care. Neither do I right now. I wish you all the best. Goodbye. I shut the door in Steve's face with a smirk. It was exhilarating to watch Steve fall from his high horse. In the days that followed, my company officially bought Steve's, and the media was made aware of everything. Steve tried contacting me multiple times, but I just blocked him. Eventually, all the employees he slept with came forward and spoke about their experiences with Steve. The public was outraged. They sued him for gross misconduct, and Steve lost a lot of money in settlements. Steve struggled to get back on his feet. He even emailed me asking for financial help, claiming I was responsible for his downfall. I wrote him a strongly worded email, making it clear he was the only one responsible for his situation. I refused to help him and warned that if he continued to contact me, I would report him for harassment. It's been a few months since all this transpired. I thought it would hurt to see Steve struggle, but it actually felt freeing. I don't know what's happening with him anymore, but I do know that I'm thriving. My business is doing great, and Georgie and I are working towards taking the company even higher. For the longest time, I let Steve's words and thoughts of me affect me, but it took a huge push for me to see otherwise. Never doubt yourself and never be too afraid to take a risk. You never know how life will reward you. Hello everyone, I'm Lisa. My story revolves around my husband, who tried to leave me because I wasn't wealthy enough for him. You might be wondering why. Well, it's not because I suddenly lost my job or made any financial blunders. It's simply that I never went to college, so I didn't have a high-paying job. I had a decent income, and my husband Rick knew this from the start. I never hid anything from him. Rick, on the other hand, had a high income but was burdened with student loans from college. So our lifestyles were actually quite similar. Initially, Rick didn't see this as a problem, and our relationship progressed smoothly until we decided to get married. Just before the wedding, Rick asked for a prenup. He said that, given his high-paying job, he feared being used for his money and didn't want me to be burdened with his loans. I felt a bit disrespected by his lack of trust, but I agreed to the prenup, And thank God I did. It saved me later. Our marital troubles began when we lost our place to live. Our landlord informed us he was selling the house, with the housing market in our city being terrible. We had no choice but to move in with Rick's mother, Natalie. Now let me clarify, my husband is the main issue here. Natalie was a cold woman who didn't care much about me, but she wasn't one of those nasty mother-in-laws you hear about. She was just annoyed to host us for free, which sometimes made her behavior a bit difficult, but we managed. After moving in with Natalie, Rick began resenting the fact that I couldn't contribute to buying a house. Because of his student loans, he couldn't qualify for a mortgage, and I didn't have enough for a down payment. We were stuck in a tough spot with limited housing options. Despite this, we had a decent life until Natalie dropped a bombshell on us. One day, she told us we needed to find other accommodations because she could no longer keep up with her mortgage payments and had decided to sell the house. Why, Mom? What's the problem? Rick asked. I can't keep up with my mortgage payments anymore, so I have to sell the house, she explained. You need to find another place to live. But we have nowhere to go, Mom. We can't afford rent with the money we have. Rick pleaded. That's not my problem, Rick. Since you two can't help me with the mortgage, I have to sell. I'm giving you plenty of time to come up with a solution. Natalie left us to fend for ourselves, saying we didn't need to move out immediately but would need to once she found a buyer. Rick and I were panicking about our housing situation. That night, he lashed out at me, blaming me for our troubles. Why can't you get a better job? You earn so little. It's not enough for us, he said. What can I do, Rick? I don't have a college degree, so this is the best I can do, I replied. You don't even have enough savings for a down payment on a house. If you weren't so lazy, you could have worked 2 jobs and saved the money. I can't work 2 jobs, Rick. I have to handle everything around the house because you don't help. It's not my job to help, Lisa. We have a roof over our heads because of me, and now even that will be gone. I don't know what I was thinking when I married you. Rick's words cut deep, and I started to cry. We had a big fight but calmed down the next day. I knew he was stressed, so I set aside my own emotions and started forming a plan. I had a small investment I could cash out to provide a down payment on a house. After talking to some friends, I found out I could qualify for a mortgage. Once I realized that, I began to form a plan. I decided to buy Natalie's house. I discovered her asking price and realized I could afford the mortgage. Despite my inexperience, I was confident in my finances and decided to approach Natalie with an offer. I contacted her agent and set up a meeting, wanting to surprise Rick, so I didn't tell Natalie directly. At the cafe, Natalie was surprised to see me. Hey, Lisa. What are you doing here? I'm here to meet an interested buyer for my house. Yes, I know that, Natalie. I am your interested buyer. Wait, what? She asked, looking at me like I had grown 2 heads. You want to buy my house? Yes, I do, I replied calmly. I've managed to save up for a down payment and will take a mortgage for the rest. It won't be a problem. You can continue living here rent-free as a thank you for helping us when we needed it. But I don't think you can afford it, she said, skeptical. I have a good credit score, so I can easily qualify for a loan. Rick can't because his debts have crippled him. I'm the only one in a position to buy a house. Wouldn't you be happier if the house stayed within the family? Yes, that is true, Lisa. I guess it would be better if I sold it to you. Think about it, Natalie. You need the money, and I need a house. It's the best deal for both of us. All you have to do is agree to sign everything over to me, and I'll take care of the rest. Okay, let me think about it, she said. Sure, but I have one request. Can you not tell Rick about this? I want to surprise him with the house on our first anniversary. I see. Okay then, I won't tell him. I'll get back to you once I've thought about your offer. Natalie went back home while I headed to work, feeling excited about the prospect of buying her house. Rick loved his mom's house because it was spacious and comfortable, and I was sure he would appreciate what I was doing. Even if he didn't, he could buy another house once his credit improved. Our separate assets and the prenup ensured that he had that option. I continued with my routine, eagerly awaiting Natalie's decision. Things were normal for a few days, though Rick seemed even more distant than before. I knew he was stressed about our living situation, which likely contributed to his mood. I tried to comfort him and offer hope, but he just got angry and told me to leave him alone. Hurt, I chose not to argue and held on to the hope that everything would improve once I secured Natalie's house. Even if she said no, I was determined to find another house for us. Then everything changed when I stumbled across some papers. You can guess where this is going. They were divorce papers. I was in complete disbelief as I read through them, confirming they were meant for me. Rick had hidden them in his office bag, which I had opened to retrieve his lunchbox. Shocked and hurt, I didn't confront Rick immediately. Instead, I decided to snoop through his phone, suspecting he might be having an affair. Desperate for answers, I found texts between him and his best friend. The things he wrote about me were awful. He called me useless, lazy, and a bad wife, all because I wasn't wealthy enough to buy him a house. Apparently, some rich girl had been flirting with him on Facebook, making him believe he could do better. Realizing my marriage was over, I knew I wouldn't leave silently. I wanted to make Rick pay for his actions. That day, I thanked God for making me sign a prenup. It had saved me more than it had saved Rick. The next day, Natalie secretly met with me and agreed to sell the house. I thought about it, Lisa. You're the best option right now. I can't make next month's mortgage payments, so you need to take over it as soon as possible, she said. Sure, Natalie. You can draw up the papers and I'll get a lawyer right away. I don't want to wait either. Our anniversary is only a few weeks away. Yeah, I remember. That's why I made the decision quickly. I've already told my lawyer to prepare the papers. You'll have them soon. And just like that, I bought Natalie's house. It was a great house, and I wanted to get back at Rick for what he was planning to do. I had plans of my own that would make him regret his actions. I was breaking inside because the man I loved was planning to betray me in the worst way possible. But I didn't let it show. Rick didn't bother to care. He had already checked out of the marriage and was enjoying the attention of the rich girl on Facebook. I slowly stopped caring, waiting for the house papers to be signed. Once that was done, I simply wanted my revenge and to rid myself of my horrible husband as soon as possible. Thankfully, I was able to get the house in my name before our anniversary. On that day, I didn't bother with any celebrations. I didn't want to waste money on a failing marriage. While some might arrange parties and confront their husbands publicly, I couldn't afford to spend any extra after putting all my money into the down payment for the house. So I treated it like a normal day. I wished Rick a happy anniversary, but he grumbled something in return and left. The confrontation didn't happen until the evening when we both returned home from work. To my surprise, Natalie had invited a few family members to celebrate our anniversary. I guess she was feeling generous after receiving money for the house. She cooked some food and looked genuinely excited for us. I was touched by this gesture, but Rick immediately got angry. What is this? What's going on? He snapped. I just invited family so we could celebrate your anniversary today. It is your first anniversary after all. I saw that you two didn't plan anything, Natalie explained. That wasn't necessary, Mom. Lisa didn't plan anything because she never has money, and I didn't plan anything because I'm not interested in celebrating our anniversary. This marriage has come to an end anyway, Rick retorted. What do you mean, Rick? Why are you saying that your marriage has come to an end? Natalie asked, confused. Rick ignored his mother and turned to me, looking me dead in the eyes. I knew this was when he would tell me he was leaving, and I was right. I don't think I can be in this marriage anymore, Lisa. I'm going to leave you forever, Rick declared. Why, Rick? You can't just drop news like this on me and not tell me why, I demanded. The reason is very simple, Lisa. You are an absolutely useless wife to me, he said coldly. Oh really, Rick? Tell me why you think I'm useless. You are not on my level, Lisa. I have a great job, and you are just an embarrassment to me. You can't even help me buy a house. I don't want to be with someone who can't help me get the things I need, he sneered. It's not my fault your credit is bad, Rick. Why should it fall on me to get a house? I retorted. Because we're a couple. I knew you weren't rich, but I thought maybe you would be able to buy me a house at least. Now I don't even think you'll qualify for a loan. I can't stay with a woman like that when I can do so much better. I will at least find a woman who has the means to have her own house, Rick replied. So you're leaving me because I'm not rich enough for you, is that it? Yes. I don't care what you think, Lisa. Don't try to stop me. I won't be with you. I'm done. Very well then, Rick. If that's what you think, go ahead and leave. I will happily grant you a divorce. Good. You need to move out soon then, because this isn't your house. Mom, you need to tell her to leave and find her own place, Rick said, turning to his mother. Rick expected Natalie to agree to kick me out, but he hadn't anticipated her reaction. She looked pale and startled, shaking because she knew exactly how much Rick had messed up. She was the only one who knew that I had bought her house a week earlier. The papers had been finalized, and now I was the sole owner of the house. So despite Rick's demands, Natalie couldn't kick me out. Natalie remained quiet, not saying anything at first. Rick kept insisting she needed to tell me to leave, and that's when I spoke up. "I think you're barking up the wrong tree, Rick. Natalie cannot actually kick me out." "Why the hell not, Lisa? This is her house, so she can kick you out." "No, Rick, it's not her house anymore. It's mine. I bought it from her last week. I am the sole owner of this house now," I revealed, watching the color drain from Rick's face. "Actually, you're wrong about that, Rick. This house doesn't belong to her anymore." "What do you mean? My mother is the owner of this house." "Nope, she's not the owner anymore. I am the new owner of this place." "What nonsense are you spewing, Lisa? This cannot be your house." "It is my house, Rick. If you don't believe me, why don't you ask your mother?" "Mom, what nonsense is Lisa saying? Did you give her this house or something?" Natalie looked too afraid to say anything. She remained frozen while the rest of the guests looked on. Rick was absolutely sure that the house was in no way mine, so he kept hounding his mother for an answer. After a while, Natalie meekly said, "Yes, it's true. This house is hers now." "No, that cannot be possible. Did you suddenly grow charitable and give away the house to Lisa, Mom?" "No, Rick. I don't need anyone's charity. I bought the house all by myself." "I don't believe it. You cannot afford this house. You cannot even afford the down payment." "What would you like to say to that, Natalie?" "You're wrong, Rick. Lisa has actually bought the house from me. We finalized the papers last week, and she was planning to surprise you today with the news, but it looks like you have ruined it." Natalie confirmed what I had told Rick, and his eyes went wide with shock. He couldn't believe that I was able to save up and buy the house. He had clearly underestimated me and was proven wrong. When the realization dawned on him, he immediately tried to change his tune. "Oh wow, that was a great surprise, Lisa. I didn't know that you were saving and planning on buying Mom's house." "I can see that, Rick. Natalie's right though. You have completely ruined my surprise." No, we can still celebrate." "Celebrate what, Rick?" "Our divorce or your exit from my house." "What are you saying, Lisa?" "You wanted a divorce, right? You will get it. I won't be in a marriage where my husband wants to leave me because I'm not rich." "Come on, Lisa. I was mad and said some stupid things. We can talk about this and get past it. The main problem has been solved already." "I don't think so, Rick. Besides, you went through all the hassle of secretly securing divorce papers. Too bad I found them out 2 weeks ago and prepared my own papers instead." Rick looked on while I drew some papers out of my work bag. I handed them to him, and he started to see what they were about. He was not happy when he saw that they were eviction papers. His hands shook, and he looked at me with tears in his eyes. Are these eviction papers? I thought you read what these papers are, Rick. Since you have a hard time reading simple English, let me confirm it for you. Yes, they are eviction papers for you and Natalie. You're kicking us out, Lisa. But where will we go?" "Don't do this, Lisa. Let's work this out." "Don't make me laugh. Rick, you want to go find a rich girl, right? Get on with it. I'm sure she'll have a place for you to stay." "I said things out of anger, Lisa. Please don't hold it against me. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you were working hard to get us a house." "Nope. This is my house, Rick. You have no claim to it. Now that we are divorcing, we got a prenup, remember? Thanks for that. Now I have a house to myself while getting rid of a horrible husband like you." I said what I had to say and remained quiet. Rick absolutely went mad in panic and started to beg me to forgive him. He started to tell me how much he loved me and knew that he had messed up. Suddenly, staying with a no-rich girl was appearing lucrative to him. He was begging me to stay with him when a few days ago he was preparing for a divorce. He even made a show of tearing up the divorce papers in front of me. I simply laughed and told him that I could always file them myself, and that made him cry and fall down on the floor to beg for mercy. Natalie also joined her son in trying to convince me. To her, I was no longer an annoyance. She was really banking on the fact that I had offered to let her stay in the house rent-free. But now that her son and I were divorcing, that wasn't happening. I even prepared eviction papers in her name so that she could not throw a tantrum. I got them done on the day the house was transferred to my name. Natalie knew that the only way for her to live anywhere rent-free was to beg me to stay married to her son. But sadly for both Rick and Natalie, their wishes weren't coming true. In the next few days, Natalie and Rick continued to pester me to forgive Rick. Since family members were present when everything happened, they knew the truth about Rick. No one was willing to take them in after that. They even berated Rick for being such an evil man and left the little get-together early. Now that Rick's own family had turned their backs on him, he begged me for mercy, but he wasn't going to get any. I simply ignored them and kept reminding them that they had a month to move out. Rick and I got divorced, no matter how hard he tried to stop it. And Natalie and Rick had to move out of my house once their 1-month grace period was up. They tried their best to convince me, but I wasn't moved. Rick and I went for a mutual divorce because Rick couldn't afford to contest me in court. Since we had a prenup, the divorce was fairly smooth. I kept the house and got no alimony. Rick kept his debts but ended up homeless. He and his mother had to get an apartment together to save money. From what I have heard, neither of them is doing very well. I don't have any pity for Rick, but sometimes I feel bad for Natalie, who isn't as bad as him. Anyway, I have a house now and can finally live a good life without having a husband who constantly demeans me. My name is Daisy, and I'm 26 years old. My story is something I'd never have guessed could happen in real life. The kind of thing you'd expect to see only in movies. Sometimes you have to get unlucky in life to get lucky. Let me start by introducing my ex-husband, Ezra. Ezra and I met in an unusual way. I was out with my friends having a good time at a restaurant, and Ezra was our waiter. I found him really cute, and one of my friends, thanks to a bit too much alcohol, decided to let Ezra know that I was interested. Ezra grabbed my number, and we started getting to know each other better. It turned out there was more to Ezra's story. He had a single mom, Karen, and they were both working like crazy, juggling all sorts of jobs just to make ends meet. But you know what? I didn't judge him based on that. I admired him and his mom for their hard work and determination. They were making it work against the odds. Things moved pretty fast, and within a year of dating, we decided to get married. Maybe it seemed a bit quick, but Ezra treated me like a princess with all he had, and Karen was nothing but sweet to me. Even my parents gave us their blessings. Looking back now, I wish I could have seen it sooner. It all seemed too good to be true. Ezra used to live with his mom, but shortly after our wedding, we found our own apartment, financed with my money. At the time, I didn't have an issue with it. We were a team. Ezra was still working as a waiter while juggling various side gigs. Both of us chipped in for our household expenses. Admittedly, I contributed a bit more, but as long as he was trying his best, it didn't matter to me. I spent most of my time at home since my job allowed remote work, while Ezra headed to work, sometimes even on weekends. One day, Ezra came up to me and said he wanted to talk about something. "Hey babe, can we talk about something?" "Of course, what's up?" "You know, my mom's been having a tougher time lately. She's getting older, and managing the household by herself has become harder for her." "Oh yeah, poor Karen." "Yeah, I mean she's struggling with a few things, bills and all. I was thinking, would it be possible for you to send her some money? You know I'm saving up for the business." "Well yeah, how much are we talking about?" "Not too much, just to help her out, maybe $600 for now." "Yeah, absolutely." Initially, I thought it was a one-time thing. Sending over $600 wasn't a major concern, so I went ahead and transferred the money into her bank account. But then I realized this was just the tip of the iceberg. Karen started asking for money way more frequently, groceries, electricity bills, you name it. If there was an expense, she'd reach out for cash. I was her emergency contact when she needed to go to the flea market because she would make me pay for it. She even began taking me to stores like Target to buy appliances and stuff for her home. She started buying things she didn't even need. It was getting seriously out of hand. I brought this up with Ezra, hoping he would say something to Karen, but he explained that he found it hard to say no to his mom. The problem was that I was essentially taking care of two households. I had my own financial goals, like saving up for a house or maybe a new car down the line. The need to save was crucial, so I had to make a move. I called Karen up. "Hey Karen, how are you?" "I'm very well, dear. I was just watering the herb pots in the kitchen, you know." "Yeah, it's important to keep them all fresh. Tell me about yourself. When are you coming to see me? I've been missing you." We could go have a day out and have some fun. About that, I've been meaning to talk to you about something, Karen. Yes, my darling, what is it? So I've been helping out with money, covering groceries and bills, but to be honest, I can't keep doing that anymore. Wait, what? Does Ezra know about this? He's the one who asked you to help me out. Yeah, I get that. But I also have to think about my future, like saving up for stuff. Seriously. So now my needs do not matter. Asking for help isn't exactly fun for me either, Karen. It's not like that. I'm not saying your needs don't matter, but I can't keep throwing money around. This is unbelievable. Ezra told me you'd take care of me, and now you're changing your tune. It's not about abandoning anyone. So you're just going to ditch me when I need help. No, Karen, that's not it. I've helped out loads, but I can't mess up my own financial situation. And I have to be honest, I've noticed some things too. Like buying that microwave when the old one was perfectly fine. And on those trips to Target, you load up on stuff that you don't even need. We end up in expensive restaurants and malls in the name of spending quality time, and I end up paying for it every time. Well, I deserve to treat myself sometimes. You're just a selfish woman, Daisy. You're just like all those other people who turn their backs when things get tough. Well, you know what? Don't bother helping at all then. I don't need your selfishness in my life. And then she just hung up on me. I tried calling Karen multiple times, and I even got Ezra to give it a shot. When he finally got through to her, she straight up told him she didn't want to talk to me unless I was still handing out cash. I was genuinely shocked. It felt like she was just using me, like our relationship only mattered if I was giving her money. It felt like I was just a walking ATM to her. I found it really disrespectful, so I talked with Ezra. I told him that if she had such conditions to talk to me again, I didn't want to engage with her at all. I cut her out of my life just like that. Ezra still went to visit her, but she never bothered coming over to our place. Life moved forward, but after seeing her true colors, I wasn't exactly prepared for what came next. One day, Ezra went out to grab some pizza for dinner and left his phone behind. That thing started ringing nonstop. Normally, I wouldn't snoop around on his phone, and he didn't check mine either. We had this unspoken understanding. But I don't know what got into me that day. Curiosity, I guess. Thank goodness for that moment of curiosity, because when I picked up his phone, it was lighting up with calls from this person named Sally. If memory serves me right, Sally was his ex. I was beyond mad. How could Ezra be doing this, staying in touch with his ex and not telling me about it? My mind was racing. What else could they be up to? Were they hooking up behind my back? I took a deep breath, tried to calm down, and opened his phone. First, I checked if they had been texting each other. Nope, not a single text. Then I went ahead and checked their call history. There was nothing there either, no outgoing calls, just the ones he recently received. So I thought I was overthinking it. Maybe Sally had some kind of emergency and needed to get in touch with Ezra. Yeah, that made sense. But I couldn't be sure. I knew I could have just straight up asked him about this mess. Instead, I took down Sally's number on my phone and waited for Ezra to get back. He showed up with dinner, and I kept my cool, acting like everything was peachy. But I didn't sleep at all that night. I had no clue how to handle this whole situation. Should I confront Ezra? Should I confront Sally? I was so stuck. So I figured, why not drop Sally a text from my phone just to see what's what? Hey, is this Sally? Yeah, who's this? I'm Daisy. I guess you might know me as Ezra's wife if you're aware he has one. Oh yeah, I know. What's up? You were calling Ezra yesterday. What for? Oh, nothing much. I just wanted to know if Ezra was free today. I thought he could babysit Connor for the day. I had some plans. Connor? Connor who? Our kid. Didn't you know? I hope this is a sick joke you're playing on me. Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. He hasn't told you. Not a word. Wow. Yeah, we have a child together. It makes sense why he never let me come over. He told me you knew about this and didn't want me or Connor anywhere near you. I'm sorry he did you dirty. Are you there? I can't believe this. Thanks for letting me know. I couldn't believe what I had just read. I was completely shaking. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Ezra had a whole baby while I was here juggling our bills and even his mom's expenses. I was working my tail off all for a better future for us. I was giving him all of my love and support, and this is what he did to me. The whole day went by, and I was just waiting for him to get back from work. How the heck did things turn out like this? Angry doesn't even cover it. I was devastated. When Ezra finally walked in the door, I didn't waste a second. Ezra, we need to talk. I know what you've been keeping from me. What? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Ezra. I know about Sally and Connor. How did you find out? It doesn't matter how I found out. What matters is that you kept something this huge from me. How could you? Daisy, just listen. No, you listen. When did all of this happen? How old is Connor? Were you with me when this was going on? I need to know the truth. Ezra, the whole truth. Connor is almost 2 years old now. Well, me and Sally hooked up while you and I were dating. It was a mistake, a stupid one. It meant nothing. I had real feelings for you. Wow. While we were dating, you cheated on me. Did she tell you about the baby? Yeah, she did. When she found out she was pregnant, she told me she wanted to keep it and asked if I was in or not. And what did you say? Well, after that, I did see her for another 3 months, but then it hit me, Daisy. I realized that I loved you and that you were the one I wanted to be with. So I told her I'd be there for the kid, but that my heart was with you. So you saw her for 3 months while you were with me. Yeah, but that made me realize that I wanted you, and that's when I proposed to you. Wow. Let me get this straight. You are telling me that you proposed to me right after you were cheating on me for 3 months, and on top of that, you were hiding the fact that you had a child with her. You've got to be kidding me, Ezra. This is beyond immature. Oh my God, you and your shitty excuses. Just pack your bags and leave. I kicked Ezra out. He deserved it. My life felt like it had been turned upside down. I went ahead and got a divorce from him. I needed some time to heal, so I went over to my parents' place for a couple of months. They were incredibly supportive and showered me with love during that tough period. Family makes a difference in your darkest times. After spending those 2 months with them, I realized I needed to pick up the pieces and reconnect with my friends. My social life had taken a major hit, and while I wasn't completely over what had happened, I knew I couldn't stay in that low place forever. It's not easy bouncing back from a failed marriage. I decided it was time to start putting myself out there again. Slowly, I managed to get my life back on track. Hanging out with friends became a regular thing, and I even dipped my toes back into the dating scene. It didn't lead to much, just some disappointing dates and not much else, but I was trying. Then one day, my dad gave me a call with some surprising news. My grandma Janice from my dad's side had passed away. I used to spend a lot of time at her house when I was younger. Attending her funeral was tough, and then my dad gave me another piece of news. We went through Mom's will, and if something you should know, she left you $2 million. Oh wait, what? $2 million. Yeah, she thought a lot about you and always loved you. I don't even know what to say. That's a lot of money. She always cared about you a great deal. I knew she was going to do this. I was not entirely shocked. My family was well off, and my grandparents were even wealthier. Being the only grandchild, I kind of knew this would happen at some point. I just didn't expect it to be this soon. After inheriting that unexpected sum, I was left with a lot of choices to consider. Suddenly, I had a huge amount of money and a whole world of possibilities laid out before me. Instead of diving into impulsive spending, I made one clear decision. I would sell my apartment and buy a house. I went ahead and signed the deal, getting myself a stunning new place. It was exciting, but it also meant I had to move out. There were still some of Ezra's things hanging around that had been untouched since he left. It was a chapter I needed to close, so I called him over. It was super weird when he showed up. We were both in this limbo of not knowing what to say. He packed his things, and just as he was making his exit, he finally broke the ice. So you're moving out, huh? Yeah, finally making the jump. Are you seeing someone new, or is it just you? It's just me. Got myself a house over on 12th Avenue. Oh, nice. 12th Avenue, huh? That's some good real estate. It must have been an expensive purchase. Yeah, it's a cool spot. I got a little boost from my grandma. She passed away and left me $2 million. Wow, seriously? Well, good for you, and sorry about your grandma. Yeah, thanks. Anyway, I've got to run. Yeah, no problem. With all my stuff moved and the chapter closed, I settled into my new place. Life was looking up. Let's just say it was a pretty posh neighborhood. I made friends with my neighbors, and we used to enjoy wine together on the weekends. I even joined the local tennis club and started making some new friends. It was like a whole different upgrade. But then, one fine day, someone I never expected to face again showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door and there she was, Karen. I invited her in. I'm sorry about everything that went down between us. What are you doing here, Karen? Well, I heard about your inheritance and condolences for your grandma. Seriously, why are you here, Karen? Daisy, let's try to put everything behind us. I want you to be a part of the family again. Are you serious right now, Karen? You want me back in your life just because I have more money? I just want you to help me out. Helping you out? What do you mean? I bought myself a car on loan as soon as I heard about what your grandma left you. Pretty expensive car, about $100,000. I needed something more comfortable, for my age. Hold on a second. Are you out of your mind? Why would I even buy that for you? Who exactly are you to me? Look, I know we had our differences, but let's just keep this family together. What family? Didn't Ezra tell you we got divorced 7 months ago? What? No, he didn't. He said you bought this house for Ezra and yourself. Karen, your son had a child with another woman he was hiding from me, and I divorced him 7 months ago. Ezra didn't tell me any of this. If you guys are not together, where has he been living all this time? I don't know. Maybe ask your son. I can't believe this. Well, maybe believe it. And you know what's funny? Both of you are being selfish. You're here only because you need money, just like before, and Ezra has been lying to you and the whole world about God knows what. It's not like that, Daisy. How am I going to pay for the car? You can't leave me hanging like this. Save it. I've had enough of this. Just leave, Karen. I don't want anything to do with you, your son, or your problems anymore. I basically showed Karen the door and gave her a piece of my mind. Seriously, I couldn't believe how greedy someone could be. And Ezra, man, that guy was a master liar. He'd been feeding his mom a load of BS about us being together. Like, where was he even crashing during that time? Who lies about stuff like that? I bought a house for both of us. What a joke. It's like he was playing make-believe. Ezra was acting like a kid, making up stories for his mom and who knows who else. It was just ridiculous. Later that day, I got some texts from Ezra. Hey Daisy, I'm really sorry about my mom showing up like that. Can you just leave me alone? I'm disgusted by all your lies right now. How could you even lie about this to your mom? Did you conveniently forget to mention her grandchild? I know I messed up big time. I was crashing with Sally and Connor, and I told her I was with you. I didn't want her to think how big of a screw-up I am. Wow, my mom's pushing me to help pay off her car loan. I don't know what to do. Wow, really? Begging for help right now, huh? Pathetic. Why don't you ask your make-believe family for help? Daisy, please. I messed up. I'm desperate. Ezra, I'm not your knave wife you can manipulate anymore. Deal with your own mess. Goodbye. After that exchange, I decided to block Ezra's number from my phone. It's been a while since that whole drama went down, and honestly, I've never felt more relieved. It's almost like karma is doing its thing with Karen and Ezra. I have no idea if they managed to sort out that car loan mess, but they're getting their fair share of what they deserve. They treated me terribly, and now life's throwing it back at them. As for me, I'm living a good life. Oh, and guess what? I've even met someone new. And yes, I've learned my lesson. Background checks are a must now. You know what they say, you reap what you sow. My intentions were pure while theirs, well, not so much. You get what you put out in the universe. I'm Luna, 27 years old, and I'm head over heels in love with George, my dashing husband. We recently embarked on this exciting journey called marriage, and we're still basking in the honeymoon phase. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, but let me not get ahead of myself. Let me take you back to how it all began. George and I are not your average couple. We come from high-flying, wealthy families that belong to New York's elite. But please don't mistake me for a spoiled rich brat. I've got a story to tell that's about more than extravagant galas and designer gowns. Our paths first crossed at a glittering charity ball. Picture a grand ballroom adorned with chandeliers that could make stars jealous, guests dressed to the nines, and a tower of champagne flowing like a river. George, my tall, dashing beau, caught my eye from across the room. It was like a fairy tale. We got to know each other and fell head over heels in love. We had many similarities but were also quite different, especially in how we were raised. My parents always showered me with love, attention, and life advice. George's family, on the other hand, spoke a different language: money. His nanny practically raised him, and his parents missed more milestones than I'd had hot dinners. But I'm not one to judge. Love can overcome a lot, right? Fast forward to our engagement day. George, being the smooth operator he is, whisked me away on a private jet to a secluded island. Imagine the sun setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, George down on one knee with a ring. Of course, I said yes immediately. Our parents finally met, and it was like watching two worlds collide. At least they were polite to each other. Before we knew it, our wedding day was fast approaching. My fabulous bestie Cassie, my maid of honor, was a lifesaver, helping me tackle all the wedding prep madness. But then came the time to personally invite our parents, and that's where things got tricky. My parents lived abroad, so a quick visit wasn't practical. George's parents, however, were in the same city, New York City, living the high life in their penthouse on the Upper East Side. One fine day, George and I decided to visit his parents' penthouse. His dad, the business tycoon, was away on some important deal, so it was just us and his mom, Diana. Meeting Diana was always an adventure. She was a complex character, and I never quite knew where I stood with her. We had only met a couple of times before, and she hadn't been particularly nice to me. "Hi, Mom. It's been a while. How have you been?" George greeted her. "George, honey, and Luna. Nice of you to drop by." "I've been well, thank you. I brought your favorite macarons from that bakery downtown. Oh, and here's the wedding invitation. We know it's a formality since you'll obviously be coming, but we wanted you to have one." "Of the wedding, right?" she said, opening the invitation. "Is it on October 14th? "Yes, Mom. We're so excited." "Excited. I would love to come, but I'm sorry, I can't. I've had a trip to Florence planned for months. Flights, hotel bookings, the works. You get it, right? I can't bail out on a girl's trip, you know." "Mom, it's our big day. It would mean so much to us if you could be there." "George, I love you, but this trip is non-negotiable. We've missed other important events, like your graduation, and everything turned out fine." "Mom, it did, but we're talking about my wedding year. I'm your only child." I thought. "Yeah, I was so excited to have you there as well. You are my family too," I added. "Luna, please, this is not about you. It's about my plans, my life. I can't shuffle everything around for your wedding. Weddings are not really my thing. All that fuss, not my cup of tea, but I do wish you both happiness. Mom, can't you reconsider?" George pleaded. "I've made up my mind, George. I'm sorry. I hope you understand. I have always made it up to you, haven't I?" "Yeah, Mom, you have. I promise I will this time as well. I'll send your dad, though." "Really? I'm glad he's going to be there. Have fun on your trip." Anyway, I was seriously ticked off as we left Diana's penthouse. She had bailed on George's life events more times than I could count, and now she was ditching her son's wedding for a girl's trip to Florence. That was a new level of unacceptable. George was crushed, and I knew him well enough to see it. He had been looking forward to having his family around for our big day, and her last-minute change of plans had shattered his excitement. Having known George for a long time, it was clear that his mom had always been a major letdown. She had the knack for making him believe she cared, but her actions screamed the opposite. It was like she used his love for her as leverage for her own gain. George had shared stories from his childhood that painted a pretty sad picture. From what he told me, she had manipulated him into thinking she was a caring mom, only to let him down over and over. I couldn't help but feel protective of George, knowing how deeply she'd hurt him. I wanted to make this day perfect for him. Later that night, after George finally fell asleep, I made a special phone call to Diana. "Luna, why on earth are you calling me at this hour?" she answered. "I called you because I wanted to personally invite you to our wedding. I am begging you, please be there for George. He has opened up to me several times about how he has felt let down by your absence in his life. He had that same look on his face today." "Oh wait, so now you're going to tell me what I did wrong while raising my son. Who do you think you are?" she snapped. "No, ma'am, that's not what I meant. I just thought being at the wedding would mean a lot to him. I'm not here to blame you or change the past. I just wanted to extend an invitation. First of all, stop calling me Mom. Let alone a daughter-in-law. I can never even consider you a part of our family. I never even liked you. You are nothing compared to my son. He's handsome and smart, And you are, let's just say, you are not the brightest bulb in the box. I don't know how this happened. I love him, and he loves me. We're building our own life together, and we're happy. Oh, how touching. Love conquers all, right? Well, good luck with that fairy tale, Luna, because you'll be needing it. What do you mean? Have your little wedding, Luna, but remember, you will always be an outsider in our family. You don't know what you're getting into. If you continue down this path, you will regret it, and there will be consequences. I'm willing to face whatever comes my way. Suit yourself, darling. Bye-bye. By then, I had pretty much given up on trying to patch things up with Diana. Her outright hostility was like nothing I had ever encountered. So I decided to keep our conversation to myself. No point in adding to George's pre-wedding jitters, right? I just played nice and pretended everything was all right. Over the next month, wedding preparations continued and it felt, well, kind of weird. I could relate to those people who had to bite their tongues and put on a happy face even when they felt like screaming. It was like navigating uncharted territory where emotions simmered beneath the surface. We had to keep them locked up. Finally, the big day arrived and we had our rehearsal dinner. We had booked an entire hotel for the week, so all our guests were staying there. Our rehearsal dinner and wedding ceremony were also held at the same hotel. Diana's absence was conspicuous, and I could feel the tension in the room. After all, it was supposed to be the groom and his parents who hosted the rehearsal dinner. Even though George's dad was there, people were exchanging puzzled glances, wondering why George's mother was missing on such an important occasion. But then Diana made her special appearance. I could not believe my eyes. Wasn't she supposed to be sipping wine in Florence? Yet there she was, striding up to George and me. Well, isn't this a picture-perfect couple? Almost makes me believe in fairy tales. Mom, what are you doing here? Weren't you supposed to be in Florence? George asked, clearly surprised. Well, I have to leave tomorrow morning, George. I'm sorry I won't be there for the wedding, but I couldn't possibly miss your rehearsal dinner while I was still here in the Big Apple. It's such a special occasion, after all. Yes, it's great to have you here, Mom. This is Luna's best friend, Casey. Casey, this is my mother, Diana. Nice to meet you, Diana, Casey said, trying to sound polite. Likewise, Diana replied, her tone chilly. So, have you had a chance to explore the hotel? It's quite luxurious. Oh, I have seen my fair share of luxury, Casey. This place is nothing special. By the way, George, can we talk for a moment? Luna, Casey, would you excuse us? George and Diana walked a few steps away, leaving Casey and me standing awkwardly. Your mother-in-law seems challenging, Casey remarked. You have no idea, Casey. I don't even know what she's doing here, I replied, feeling the tension in my shoulders. Diana eventually left the hall, and I quickly asked George, where did she go? Oh, she needed to freshen up, so I gave her our room key, he replied. That freshening up came at a huge price. The next morning, the day of the wedding, was supposed to be all happiness and excitement. Instead, it felt like a scene from a disaster movie. My dreamy Vivienne Westwood wedding gown had vanished into thin air. I turned our suite upside down, hoping I would find it hiding somewhere. But no luck. Tears started flowing as I realized the horror of it all. My wedding dress had disappeared on the biggest day of my life. I had nothing to wear. Could anything be worse? I called my folks, who were just in the next suite, and told them everything. They promised to rush over and help. A text to George had to suffice, but it would be ages before he could check it, thanks to the whole no seeing each other before the ceremony rule. Casey stepped in, suggesting we hit the nearest bridal shop and grab whatever white dress was available. It wasn't my dream dress, but it was better than nothing. As I stood in the shop surrounded by pretty white gowns that weren't the one, a sinking feeling settled in. The replacement dress was nice, but it couldn't replace the one that had mysteriously vanished. While I got dressed, my mind started ticking. Diana, my not-so-loving mother-in-law, had paid a visit the night before. I knew she didn't exactly adore me, and the idea struck me like a lightning bolt. Could she be behind the disappearing dress? It sounded just like something Diana would do, a parting shot before my big day. I couldn't prove it, but it was all too suspicious. One minute the dress was hanging there, and the next it was nowhere to be found. Diana was the only one who had been alone in our suite. I made a phone call to Diana. I was waiting for you to call, Luna, she answered, her voice dripping with false sweetness. What on earth did you do, Diana? Are you completely out of your mind? I did what I could to put a stop to this wedding. You're absolutely crazy. Do you realize how mad George is going to be when he finds out about this? George can't marry you, Luna. I will not allow it. George is going to marry me today, Diana, no matter what you do. Nothing can change that. This was just my first attempt, Luna. Be prepared. You keep saying that, Diana, but it will not make a difference. I must have done something right for George to choose me. I cannot believe he is marrying a woman like you. Well, believe it because it's happening today. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a wedding to attend. Despite Diana's ridiculous antics, nothing could ruin our joy. Our wedding was like a fairy tale. Seriously, everything was perfect. Flowers were everywhere. George looked dashing, and I walked down the aisle in the last-minute gown that, I must admit, looked pretty darn amazing. My dad walked me down the aisle, and George shed a few tears. Our vows were heartfelt, promising a lifetime of love, support, and obsession with each other. As we exchanged rings, it hit me that this was the beginning of our epic adventure together. Then came the reception, a big fancy shindig with champagne flowing like there was no tomorrow. We danced, our friends and family gave the sweetest toasts, and the room was just bursting with love. After all the partying, George and I headed to our honeymoon suite. Alone at last, we couldn't help but grin like a couple of love-struck goofballs. We were officially married, and it felt so good. We were going to go on our honeymoon a month later because George had some work commitments, which was fine by me. I hadn't told George about his mom's trick. I wanted to deal with Diana when her little vacation was over. A few days after our picture-perfect wedding, George was back at work dealing with his usual commitments while I was chilling at home, soaking in that newlywed bliss. Life was pretty sweet. But then, out of the blue, my phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID, and of course, it was Diana. Now that was one call I definitely hadn't seen coming. Luna, honey, it's Diana. I've made a terrible mishap. I got pickpocketed here in Florence of all places. I lost my passport. My friends have all flown out, and I'm stuck here alone. Your dad is a diplomat here in Italy, right? He was talking about it at the rehearsal dinner. Can you help me, my dearest? We are all family, after all. I'm sure your dad can pull some strings. What family, Diana? Diplomat or not, it does not change the fact you made it pretty clear I'm not your family. Remember all those lovely things you said to me before our wedding. Luna, please, I'm desperate here. My friends have left me all alone to figure this out on my own. I promise I'll make it up to you somehow. You know I can be difficult, but I'm still George's mother and your mother-in-law. I love you as my own. This is the sweetest lie I have ever heard. You are his mother, all right. Family does not treat each other the way you treated me. You missed our wedding for a silly fun trip that you take 6 times a year, made an appearance at our rehearsal dinner just so you could steal my dress and ruin my wedding. And now you want my help when it is convenient for you? Sorry, Diana, but I am not feeling particularly charitable right now. Luna, I admit I have made mistakes, but you are the only one who can help me. I need to get back to New York. I have things to attend to. You are so selfish. You're not even genuinely sorry, I bet. I'm sorry, Diana. I'm not helping you. Goodbye. Just in case I forgot to mention, my dad is indeed a diplomat in Italy, and I'm half Italian. I grew up in Rome, but moved to New York City for school, and have been here ever since. But helping Diana? Nah, that was not in my cards. I was kind of anxious about George coming back, because that would mean I had to tell him everything. As I sat in our living room fidgeting with the hem of my dress, my mind raced. George was due home any minute, and I could not avoid the truth any longer. I knew he would not be mad at me, but at the same time, I didn't know how he would take so much news since the wedding day all at once. When George finally got home, I told him everything. George, I've been meaning to tell you something. Oh, what is it, Luna? Your mom, she was the one who stole my wedding dress. She admitted to it herself. The thing is, she doesn't like me. She didn't want me to be a part of the family. It was right before the wedding, and I was devastated. She just wanted to ruin everything for me. Luna, I'm so sorry about my mom's behavior. That's just unacceptable. I can't believe she would do something like that. She tried to ruin it not just for you but for both of us. Don't worry, babe. I'm going to deal with this whenever she comes back. There's something else, George. What is it? Your mom called me today. Her passport has been stolen, and she wanted to get here as soon as possible. She asked for help from my dad. What did you say? I'm sorry, George, but I could not say yes to help her after what she did. It just didn't feel right. You know what, Luna? She deserves it. I'm glad you did that. She can deal with her own problems, no matter how much time it takes. We're not helping her. She needs to learn that her actions have consequences. We're not going to bail her out. After the whole drama, George and I finally got to enjoy our European honeymoon. We packed our bags and traveled across the continent, soaking in the sights and sounds of romantic cities. Paris, Venice, Rome, you name it, we were there, making memories that would last a lifetime. We even visited my parents in Rome. It was a sweet treat. One day, while sipping coffee at a cute cafe in Paris, we got a text from George's dad. It was a message from Diana. She was texting from her husband's phone. She had miraculously made it back home after 2 months. Talk about good timing. George had a good laugh about it, and honestly, we couldn't care less. When we got back home, Diana tried to reach out, hoping for reconciliation, but George and I were like, thanks, but no thanks. We stuck to our guns and focused on our own happiness. We decided it was best to keep our distance. 4 months into our married life, and here we are, stronger than ever. George and I have become quite the dynamic duo. We've grown, cried, laughed, and supported each other through thick and thin. Our love story is not some fairy tale. It's real, it's messy, and it's uniquely ours. My name is Crystal, and I don't have anyone in this world, so I'm sharing my story here. I've watched my husband transform into a monster. I don't know how many of you have successful love stories, but I envy those who married their soulmates and are now living their best lives. I thought I was marrying my soulmate, Seth, but I was wrong. Seth and I got married out of love. We both had stable jobs and a good relationship before our wedding. However, after we got married, Seth suddenly quit his job without consulting me. He said, "Look, Crystal, I was getting depressed and burnt out at my last job, so I needed to quit. I'll apply for a new job soon, but I need a break. You'll have to support us till then." I'm sorry you're feeling down, Seth, but you should have consulted me or at least told me you were going to quit. I needed a heads up, I replied. It's not a big deal, Crystal. It's just for a few months. After that, things will go back to normal. Things never went back to normal. I took on 2 jobs to support us while Seth sat at home and played games all day. He didn't even take care of the house. After months of struggling, paying rent became nearly impossible. We were forced to ask for help from his parents, Cole and Olivia. They were furious when they found out Seth had quit his job. "Seth, what is wrong with you? You're getting back to your old habits again. This is unacceptable," Cole said. "What do you mean, Cole? Seth is a hard-working man. I always knew him that way. This situation is an exception. He hasn't been doing well mentally," I tried to explain. "You don't know everything, Crystal. Seth has done this multiple times. He quits his jobs and then expects us to take care of him. Last time, we threatened to cut him off if he didn't get a decent job. We forced him to go back to work. After that, he met you, and we thought he had genuinely changed. Now we see he's back to his old ways. He says he's depressed and has visited many therapists. They all said there was nothing wrong with him. He was just playing us for free money." I was shocked. In the 2 years we were together before marriage, Seth was a consistent worker. He never did anything like this. This only started after the wedding. Seth tried to defend himself, saying, "Dad, you saw that I changed my ways. This is really an exceptional situation. We just need a little help for the time being. I'll find a job soon." "You better stick to your word, Seth. We won't have you mooching off your wife. She's a good girl and deserves happiness. We'll let you stay at one of our properties for free, but you have to promise to get a job soon. We'll kick you out if you continue this charade." "Thank you so much. Seth will work on his problems, I assure you. Thank you for helping us until then," I said gratefully. Seth promised his parents he would find a job, but he never did. Instead, he lied to them about getting a job while I worked myself to the bone to support our family. I kept quiet because I loved him and didn't want to pressure him. Slowly, our finances deteriorated. I was barely making ends meet, yet Seth continued to waste his time and even berated me when I failed to bring in more money. He warned me not to take days off to avoid missing a day's wage. I was exhausted and isolated from everyone. Seth hated it when I went out with friends. I was foolish and madly in love, so I stayed like this for a year. Yes, for an entire year. I worked like a slave and reduced myself to nothing. One day, I had enough and took a day off from both jobs. When Seth saw that I didn't go to work, he yelled, "Why the hell are you home, Crystal? You should be at work making money." I took the day off, Seth. I will die if I keep working like this. This is unacceptable. Who the hell told you that you can take a break? I warned you about this, Crystal. Still, you didn't listen to me. How can you be so cruel, Seth? For a whole year, I worked like a slave while you enjoyed my money. You isolated me from my friends because you didn't want me going out and spending money. This is hell, Seth. I deserve a day off and I will go out. You will have to deal with it. I ran out of the house, crying because I was hurt. I just needed to get away from him. I roamed around the city and did a little window shopping. I didn't have much money to buy anything. The past year, I lost most of the money I had saved because of Seth. I was truly getting frustrated with him. He had stopped showing me affection a long time ago. All he did now was yell at me about wasting time or not bringing in enough money. I really didn't know what to do. After being out for most of the day, I returned home in the evening. I walked up to the house and tried to unlock the door with my key. The lock turned, but the door didn't open. I realized it was bolted from the inside. I was confused and decided to knock. I knew Seth was home, but he didn't answer. After a while, I started to shout, "Seth, open the door. I'm waiting outside. It's freezing out here, and I'll catch a cold. I'm not going to open the door." "What? Are you joking or something? Seth, this is not funny. Open the door. You think you can disrespect me and ignore my warnings? That will never happen, Crystal. You need to be taught a lesson so you never do this again. I'm not letting you into the house tonight. You can stay outside or wherever you come from." "What the hell are you talking about, Seth? Are you locking me out because I took a day off from work? This is ridiculous. Let me in." "Knock all you want, Crystal. I'm not letting you in. Consider this a lesson. I don't want you to repeat this behavior ever again." Seth ignored me. He didn't open the door and stopped responding to my calls. I kept pounding on the door and calling him, but I got no answer. I was starting to freeze and didn't know what to do. Like a fool, I decided to wait a little, hoping his anger would dissipate. I thought Seth wouldn't be so cruel as to lock me out of the house. I was wrong. I sat there for 2 hours before I realized how abusive my husband had become. At that point, I felt completely alone. Seth had isolated me from my friends, and I didn't have any family in the state. I didn't know where to take shelter for the night. The cold was creeping in, and I started to shake from the chills. After thinking for a while, I decided to seek help from the only 2 people I knew well enough. I got into my car and drove straight to my in-laws' house. They were my only hope in this horrible situation. I knew they were good people and would help me out at least a little. I raced to their house and knocked on the door. Cole opened it and was surprised to see me. After letting me in, he said, "Hey, Crystal, what's the matter? Why are you crying? Oh my God, you poor thing. Is Seth okay? Why did you come alone?" Seth locked me out of the house. I was sitting outside for 2 hours before I drove here. What the hell, Crystal? Why did he lock you out? What kind of prank is this? Don't tell me he's getting influenced by all those videos he watches. No, Cole, he wasn't pranking me. He locked me out because I took a day off work. He doesn't like it when I take a break. I've been working 2 jobs to support us. I was feeling burned out, so I went window shopping for a day. It's not like I can buy anything. I don't have money. What in the world, Crystal? Why are you working 2 jobs? Seth has been telling us that he is earning well enough for both of you. He even said he's asking you to leave your job and take a break. He's been lying to you guys. He never got a job after he left his last one. I don't think he even sent any applications. He's been pestering me for money, so I had to take up 2 jobs. He gets upset when I take a leave because it means I'll get less money next month. I started to cry and poured my heart out to his parents. I knew he had been keeping them in the dark. I supported his lies because I didn't want them to disown him. Like an idiot, I loved a man who didn't even care about me. My pain and shame became too much to handle. I broke down, and Seth's parents were horrified to learn their son had become abusive towards me. They were even more furious than I was. Cole started to curse out loud while Olivia quietly patted my back. When I finished crying, Cole said, "Crystal, don't worry. You are not alone. We are going to get you out of this situation. I can't believe our son has turned into a monster. I wonder where we went wrong with him. This is horrible. Crystal, please don't cry. We will figure out something, I promise. I don't know what to do, guys. Truth be told, I don't even want to be in the same house as him. I don't know where to go. Don't worry about that, Crystal. We'll take care of it. Let's go back to the house. I'll go with you. It's time we teach Seth a lesson he'll remember, Cole said. Cole and I went back to our house. Olivia stayed behind because she was sure she would slap Seth if she saw him. We knocked at the door, and Seth didn't open. I heard him scream that he wasn't letting me in. Seth, open the door. It's been 3 hours already. How much longer are you going to punish me? As long as I want, Crystal. You didn't listen to me when I told you not to take a break. Now I'm not going to listen to you. See what it feels like. You are insane, Seth. I took a break for 1 day, 1 freaking day. That doesn't mean I deserve to spend so many hours outside. You deserve to spend the night outside if you were so desperate for a break. You can stay out and take as much time as you need. I am not opening the door. You can keep knocking. Seth, open the damn door right now. Open it, or God help me, I will break this door down. After Cole called out to him, there was immediate silence. Seth knew he had messed up. He opened the door once he heard his father's voice. When he saw the two of us, he got even more nervous. His dad looked rather scary with a mean frown on his face. Hey, Dad. What brought you here? You didn't say you would stop by, Seth said nervously. Drop the chit-chat, Seth. Tell me, who the hell are you to lock my daughter-in-law out of the house? Did you forget that I own the place you live in? Dad, it's not like that. I was just pranking Crystal. It's not what you think. We were just joking around, right, Crystal? It is exactly what you think, Cole. Seth kicked me out of the house because I took a day off work. He has been working me to the bone while spending my money and sitting around at home. Seth, why the hell is Crystal telling me that you left your job without consulting her? I let you stay here on the condition that you would work on yourself for your family. Why am I hearing this about you? At this point, Seth knew he was cornered. His lies were unraveling, and he had nowhere to hide. My pride would never let me tell people about my useless husband, but he underestimated the power of a woman who has been abused for too long. I wasn't going to sit idle and take his abuse anymore. I was going to ruin him. Still, Seth tried his best to save himself. Dad, it's not like that. I swear. I'm looking for jobs. It's just taking time. You know how bad the job market is right now. I've sent so many applications, but I haven't heard back yet. Oh, really? Well, why don't you show me all the job applications you've sent then? We will decide if you are telling the truth. Why do you need to see proof? Don't you believe your own child? This is ridiculous. I don't need to show you any proof. I'm telling you I have sent numerous applications. No, Seth hadn't sent any applications. I knew that very well. He never tried to get another job after he quit his last one. He planned to sit on his butt and spend my money. Even Cole could understand that his son was up to no good. There was no way Seth was speaking the truth. Since Seth wasn't going to say anything, I spoke up. He hasn't sent out any applications, Cole. That's why he isn't showing you the proof. A work position opened at my office, and I told him to apply. He didn't and instead screamed at me about how dare I tell him what to do. Seth, your mother and I allowed you to stay here only if you turned your life around. You fooled us into thinking you got a job and were contributing to your family. Now I see you're making Crystal work for both of you while you do nothing but spend money. Since you didn't hold up your end of the bargain, I'm going to evict you from the house. What? Dad, no, please don't do that. Where will we go? You can't just kick us out like that. Crystal, look what you've got us into now. We'll both lose the roof over our heads. There is no point shouting at her, Seth. This is your doing, Cole said sternly. Cole, Crystal will come to stay with us or at this house. You are the one who is getting kicked out. You don't have to worry about where Crystal is going to stay. Dad, this is unfair. Crystal and I are a couple. You can't separate us. You can't separate a married couple for God's sake. I go where my wife goes, and that's final. If Crystal wants to stay married to me, she has to take me where she goes. Yeah, well, in that case, I won't stay married to you anymore. I made that decision a while back, Seth. There is no way I'm going to continue this marriage. I will be divorcing you. Seth was dumbstruck by what I said. He didn't expect 2 blows in one night. All his life, he used the people around him to fund his expenses to some extent. For the last year, he managed to throw all his responsibilities on others. He expected life to go on like that. However, that was not going to happen. His parents and I were going to stand up for ourselves. Seth understood that he had just nuked his life at that point. He suddenly changed his demeanor. He cried and begged me not to leave him. "Crystal, don't do this. You can't be serious. You're throwing away so many years of our relationship for a small mistake. Look, I know I shouldn't have locked you out, but it was just one day. We can work this out." "No, it wasn't one day, Seth. You have been financially abusing me for the past year. You drained my savings and left me with nothing. You didn't even help with house chores and complained when I asked. 1 year of this torture is enough, Seth. Not anymore. I am leaving." "Crystal, you're being unreasonable. We can talk this out." "Fine, I will start applying for jobs tomorrow. I'm sure I'll find something soon. Once I get a job, we can go to therapy and fix this, right? I know you well enough to know that you will not do any of that. I suggested all those things last year. You ignored me and called me names every time. I know that if I listen to you now, you will act like you have changed but then go back to how things are now. Dad, please help me convince Crystal. See, I'm willing to change, but she's not listening to me at all. I didn't file for divorce straight away. Why? Because I needed Seth to get back on his feet to avoid alimony. Seth would be forced to find work once the month was up, and he would have to move. Until then, he could enjoy half of whatever I had in our joint account. I transferred half of the funds into my own account and left him with half, and I promised myself not to send any funds into that account again. Seth tried his best to convince me to return to him. He showed up at his parents' place multiple times to get us to forgive him. We didn't, of course. In fact, this time his mother verbally attacked him for being such a deadbeat. She even called him a poor excuse of a man. Seth was crying and begging for forgiveness. It was truly glorious. The month passed and Seth was forced to move out of the house. He tried to fight the move, which led to his parents almost calling the cops. I guess Seth found it hard to believe that his parents were actually kicking him out. Anyway, since then, he had been couch surfing with his friends but had to get a job, of course. Who would host him for free day after day? Everyone knew about his bad habits of becoming a parasite on others. Seth couldn't find a good job but made do. As soon as he moved into a place, I filed for divorce. The process was easy because Seth didn't have any money for a lawyer. He resigned to his fate and let us get divorced. I wasn't giving him any alimony because our income difference wasn't much. I left one of my jobs because I no longer needed to support another person. Plus, his parents were hosting me for free, which let me build back my savings as well. We split amicably because we didn't have the means to fight. He apologized to me multiple times, but I didn't forgive him. I'm now living in a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate. Things are picking up for me. I visit Olivia and Cole since they have become my family as well. They are also refusing to forgive Seth, and it doesn't look like their relationship will ever go back to normal. Who's at fault here now? Crystal is doing the right thing by divorcing you. You don't have the right to hold her back. Her logic is completely on point. She's a good girl, and I don't want her to waste her life with an abusive man like you anymore. Crystal, you know what? You can come over to our place and stay there until Seth is kicked out. I'll wait here while you pack your bags. I took the chance and went straight to my room to get my stuff. As promised, Cole waited for me downstairs while Seth tried to make him change his mind. To be honest, I didn't trust Seth anymore, and staying with him in this house after the confrontation would be too risky, so I took Cole's offer to stay with them. I could hear Seth shouting and crying downstairs. Cole was passive to everything and waited quietly for me. I got my stuff and went downstairs. Seth tried to physically block me with his body. That's when Cole shouted at him about calling the police. Seth got scared and let me go. Back at my in-laws' place, Olivia took one look at us and immediately hugged me. For some reason, her tender move brought me back to tears. It had been ages since someone held me like that or showed me any bit of affection. It made me realize how much I lost by marrying Seth. His own parents loved me more than he did. Olivia brought me into the house and assured me that I could stay with them as long as I wanted. So I decided to stay there for the time being. My name is Mary, and I'm 45 years old. I live with my husband Richard, who's the same age. We met in college and started dating soon after. My first impression of Richard was that he was serious and honest. Though a man of few words, he deeply cared about his family. I was drawn to Richard's kindness and knew I wanted to spend my life with him. Luckily, Richard felt the same way. We even promised to marry each other while still in college. Despite some calling it young love, we continued dating after graduation, and once we began our careers, we decided to get married. To our delight, we had a child shortly after getting married. Our daughter, Sarah, who was turning 21 this year, graduated from vocational school and has started working. Her workplace is close enough to commute from home, but she wanted to live on her own, so she now lives near her job. With Sarah moved out, Richard and I have been enjoying life, just the two of us, for the first time in a while. Life was pretty good, but there was one thing that bothered us: the presence of my sister-in-law, Susan. Susan, who is 38, divorced William last year after being married for 15 years. The reason for their divorce was Susan's infidelity. Despite appearing like an average woman, Susan has a weakness for men and had cheated on William multiple times during their marriage. William had seemingly turned a blind eye, but eventually he couldn't bear it anymore. He collected evidence of her affairs and confronted her with divorce papers through lawyers. Susan didn't have a chance. William even demanded a large sum of alimony from Susan's lover, David, which led to the divorce. What surprised me the most was what happened next. Unbelievably, Susan decided to remarry, this time with David. We found out about her remarriage when we received the wedding invitation. Knowing about Susan's infidelity was messing with my head. Susan, are you really going through with this wedding? Everyone knows about your affair with David. Are you sure about this? Richard, who has always doted on Susan, thinks her remarrying David is cause for celebration. But I couldn't help thinking about William, who got cheated on. Poor guy. And Susan has even more issues to deal with, issues that would soon come crashing down on us. One day, Richard got a call from Susan. Yeah, what? Are you okay? We can't tell what's going on over the phone. Come over now. Richard sounded frantic. After hanging up, he looked deeply concerned. Susan was crying on the phone and seemed too distraught to explain, so I invited her over. Richard's serious expression told me this wasn't something to take lightly. I felt uneasy, wondering what could have happened to Susan, who was supposed to be getting married in 2 months. About an hour after hanging up, Susan arrived at our place, sweating bullets. You could tell she was really stressed out. Welcome, come on in, Richard said. Mary, help me. As soon as she entered the house, it was clear Susan was panicking. Hey, calm down, Richard said, seeing the frantic Susan on the sofa and offering her some coffee. Susan gulped down the coffee and let out a deep sigh, trying to calm herself. What's got you so worked up? I asked. As I looked into Susan's face, she started to break down in tears. Richard, shocked, rushed to console her. It's okay. Can you tell us what is going on? Yeah, okay, Susan said. After shedding some tears, she drank another cup of coffee before she started talking. The thing is, I need your advice about the upcoming wedding. Wait, are you canceling the wedding? Why on earth would you do that? Richard interrupted. No, that's not it. Well, it's not it, Susan stammered. What are you trying to say? Richard asked. It seemed like Susan was trying to figure out how to explain. She hung her head and remained silent for a while. You have to tell us or we can't help. If there's something we can do, we will, Richard encouraged. Susan finally spoke the truth. The truth is, I may not be able to afford the wedding and the honeymoon. What? I was flabbergasted. All that panic, and she was worried about money? Richard turned to Susan. So let me get this straight, you're saying the wedding and the trip might be off because you can't secure the funds. Yeah, Susan replied. You work, don't you? And doesn't David have any savings? It's not that we don't have any, Susan explained. It's just that we spent it all on our divorces. We had to pay William alimony, so we can't afford the wedding or the trip. I was at a loss for words, incredulous that Susan would speak so casually about such a foolish decision. So the point of discussion is, we were hoping to borrow the money for the wedding and the trip from you two, she continued. Richard listened to Susan and furrowed his brow. Clearly, he found this whole situation ridiculous as well. After a sigh, he spoke. Oh, is that all? Well, we have some savings. We can lend you that much. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're lending it to them. Of course it would be heartless to refuse Susan, right? He continued. You don't have to pay us back. He added, turning to me, Mary, you said you have been saving for our parents' care, right? We can lend them the money from that. Richard proposed to lend them money from my savings, not his. No, that money is for my parents. I can't just give it away. Susan broke down crying again, and Richard rushed to comfort her. What's wrong with you, not helping Susan in a time like this? How much do you need, Susan? It's $30,000 total. $30,000? My parents are already over 75. Though they're still healthy, they will need care soon. Being an only child, I had been saving for this purpose. Even after having children, I never quit my job and have saved up money alongside educational funds. I had no desire to use this money for Susan. We'll be using Mary's $30,000 savings for Susan's wedding and honeymoon, Richard stated. I told you, that money is for my parents' care. I continued to adamantly refuse. Richard finally lost his temper. Not helping Susan is crazy. Those who have should give. Then why don't you give it? I retorted. I bought this house. I don't have savings. The house was bought with both our salaries and on a mortgage. That's no reason. What about Sarah's educational expenses? I pressed. We split that too. And by the way, we have split all living expenses so far. Did you forget? At a loss for words, Richard clenched his fists, his face beat red. I suddenly realized that Richard hadn't been saving any money at all. We had been keeping our finances separate since we got married, so I had no idea. Just give me the money, no questions asked. If you don't get it, then forget it. Richard spat out those words and stormed off to his room. I was left alone with Susan in the living room, not knowing what to do. Mary, do we really have to go without the money? Susan looked at me with teary eyes, but that wouldn't work on me. Sorry, you'll have to figure it out yourselves, I said, avoiding further conversation to keep things from getting more complicated. An awkward silence filled the room. Susan seemed to be waiting for me to give in, showing no signs of leaving. After some time, Richard finally emerged from his room holding a piece of paper. I printed out divorce papers. If you won't help Susan financially, then let's divorce. I've already signed them. It's up to you now, Mary. Richard was out of breath, clearly riled up. If we divorce, you will lose this house, Mary. You think a 45-year-old divorcee can easily find a place to live. Richard was looking down on me, confident I wouldn't go through with it. Seeing Richard's arrogance and Susan's irresponsibility, something inside me snapped. You want a divorce because I won't give Susan money? Don't be ridiculous. Enough of making a fool out of me. I snatched the divorce papers from Richard. I'll go through with the divorce. Why don't you pay Susan the $30,000 since you love her so much? My yelling left Richard frozen in surprise. Ignoring him, I quickly packed essentials and left the house. I had nowhere to go, but I took a chance and called Sarah. Hello? Hey, how are you? Luckily, Sarah picked up right away. Rare to get a call from you. What's up? Well, I had a big fight with Richard. If it's not too much trouble, can I stay at your place for the night? Of course, stay as long as you like. Oh, could you make some of your buffalo chicken wings? It's been a while. Sarah loves the buffalo chicken wings I make. Thanks, I'll make a ton of them. I headed to the supermarket to buy ingredients and then drove to Sarah's apartment. After a 30-minute drive, I'd arrived at Sarah's place. As I started cooking in the kitchen, Sarah awkwardly approached me from behind. What did Dad say to make you consider leaving home? Not wanting to worry Sarah, I replied vaguely. Well, just some stuff. Did? Oh, Mom noticed something. I froze at Sarah's words. What are you talking about? Never mind. Sarah quickly looked away, flustered. I had an instinct that I needed to know what Sarah was getting at. Actually, I've been thinking about divorcing Dad. He said some awful things. Do you know something about it too? The moment the word divorce left my mouth, Sarah's eyes widened. She started talking like a dam had burst. Finally, it's out. Dad is having an affair. I saw him going into a hotel with a younger woman. It made my skin crawl. And that's why I moved out. Sarah's revelation was beyond surprising. I couldn't believe what she was saying and was stunned. An affair? Huh. Wait, it wasn't about that. Sarah's face turned pale. She realized she had spoken impulsively. It wasn't about that, but it sounds like something I should know. Can you tell me more? I'm not going to get any more hurt at this point. Well, if Mom says it's okay, I'll talk. Sarah took a seat and started talking about Richard's infidelity. Just before I graduated, I saw Dad when I was out with friends at a pub. He was walking with a woman I didn't recognize, so I followed them. Sarah had goosebumps on her arms. Seeing your own father's infidelity is not something anyone would want to witness. Her revulsion was understandable. Do you have any proof? Yeah, I was so disgusted and angry. I took photos of Dad entering the hotel. When Sarah showed me the pictures, there was Richard, arm in arm with a much younger, beautiful woman. Wow, that's really unsettling. I'm sorry I didn't catch on sooner. Sarah shook her head. Actually, I was blackmailed for money by Susan. When I refused, Richard told me to divorce him. If I have this kind of evidence, I'll be the one filing for divorce. Sarah had been keeping this from me all along. She must have been going through a lot. I felt terrible now that I understood why Sarah had moved out. Could you send me those pictures? I have the divorce papers signed by Richard. I'll make sure to get alimony before the divorce is finalized. I'll go with you. I want to give Dad a piece of my mind one last time. Feeling empowered knowing Sarah was on my side, I finally grasped the full picture. It turns out Richard wasn't blaming Susan for her affair because he was cheating too. The moment I realized that, my disdain for him grew exponentially. That night, we drowned our sorrows in a heap of buffalo chicken wings and a good deal of venting about Richard. Far from being upset, Sarah seemed almost pleased at the idea of Richard no longer being in our lives. Then the weekend rolled around and Sarah and I went over to where Richard was staying. So you have finally come back, he sneered. We returned to find our home in shambles. Richard, never one for housework, hadn't bothered to clean or cook. Half-eaten instant noodles and snack wrappers were strewn all over the place. We're back, but what a mess. How can anyone live like this? Sarah said, visibly annoyed. How dare you talk to your parent like that? Richard snapped. Well, you won't be my parent much longer, will you? Sarah shot back, even more irritated. I have already told Sarah I have filled out the divorce papers. All that's left is to file them, I stated firmly. You really think you can actually divorce me? Richard challenged. I do, but first, there's something I need to confirm with you, I said. Richard, Sarah, and I sat down on the sofa. The table in front of us was dirty, which only made me feel more uncomfortable. Confirm what? Take a look at this. I showed Richard a picture Sarah had sent me. As he looked at the screen on my phone, his face went white. This is, he stammered. The picture showed Richard entering a hotel with another woman, leaving no room for excuses. That woman works for me. She wasn't feeling well, and we were just taking a break. You're not going to assume this is cheating, are you? Richard tried to wiggle his way out with a lame excuse. Assume. I took the photo right before you entered the hotel. She was laughing and didn't seem sick to me, Sarah said. I'll give you the divorce you want, but you will have to pay the alimony decided in court, I declared. I can't afford to pay alimony. I have to give money to Susan too, Richard protested. My disappointment in Richard, who was still prioritizing Susan even now, reached new heights. Then work hard to afford both. From now on, we'll talk through lawyers, so don't contact us again. I don't need a cheating dad. Please get out of my sight, Sarah added. We were just about to leave the house when we heard Richard's desperate plea. Wait, you've got it all wrong. Please wait. He came chasing after us. Think about it, Mary. If we get divorced, you're going to lose the house, right? You would just be causing yourself trouble. I felt not an ounce of love for Richard, who couldn't even muster an apology to the very end. It's your punishment for planning to use my money on Susan and for belittling me. I don't need this house. Mom, you can stay at my apartment for a while, Sarah said. Leaving a teary-eyed Richard behind, we walked out of the house. Oh, what a relief, I sighed. Me too, Sarah agreed. The thought that we wouldn't have to deal with Richard and Susan anymore lifted our spirits. Eventually, I was able to finalize the divorce thanks to Sarah capturing those incriminating photos. I also secured a decent settlement in court. Broke and penniless, Richard could no longer provide for Susan. As a result, Susan and David were unable to get married. They didn't just stop there. They broke off their engagement after constant fights about money. Susan blamed her inability to remarry on Richard. Infatuated with Susan, Richard felt responsible, and they now live together. However, due to paying me the settlement, Richard is also broke. In the end, they moved in with their parents, but I had already filled them in on the situation, so they got kicked out. People should learn not to depend on money and start living on their own. As for me, I decided to move back into my parents' home with Sarah. Fortunately, both of my parents are still healthy, so I used my saved caregiving funds to renovate our family home. The fully renovated house is incredibly comfortable, and both my parents and Sarah are thrilled. I plan to keep working hard to maintain a simple yet fulfilling life. Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. I'm Mary and my husband is Aiden. He is the absolute love of my life, and I want to make it clear that he is not responsible for his mother's annoying behavior. Aiden is a decent man who loves me a lot, so please don't blame him for anything. Now let me tell you about Aiden's mother, Violet. She's quite an unusual woman. I never thought she hated me, but she definitely had some issues from the very beginning. It seemed like she was in some sort of competition with me because we worked in the same field. She also seemed jealous of the fact that I have a college degree while she does not. Before I married Aiden, we rarely saw Violet, so her behavior wasn't a big problem. But when we moved to her small town after she suddenly fell ill, a lot changed. I soon realized how much of a show-off Violet was. She constantly boasted about her high-paying job and flaunted her wealth. When we first moved in, she made fun of me for having a low-paying job, saying, "It's so sad you had to settle for a low-paying job. I understand not everyone is qualified for a high-paying job." "Violet, I did have a high-paying job," I told her. "I had to leave it because we moved here, and the position wasn't remote. That's why I took a pay cut." "Whatever you say, Mary," she responded. "It's just that you have a fancy degree and all, and still can't earn well. You should learn something from me. I live in a small town too, and have one of the highest paying jobs here. I don't make excuses, Mary. I actually get what I want." Violet continued to mock me and flaunt her wealth. I come from a fairly well-off family but didn't like people knowing that, so Violet never knew I had more money than her. I was in a tough spot, having to sacrifice a good job and move to Violet's town, only to have her become a significant problem. My mental health suffered, and I constantly felt like a failure because I couldn't find a suitable job in the town. Violet's comments really hurt me. Aiden tried to talk to his mom and make her change her behavior, but nothing worked. She continued flaunting her wealth and rubbing it in my face that she had a better job than me. A year passed and nothing changed. I was still stuck in my old position and couldn't find a suitable job. I was growing increasingly frustrated, but there was nothing I could do. During that time, something unexpected happened that changed my life. But before I tell you about that, you need to know about an exchange I had with Violet at one of her parties. Violet loved to throw parties and often invited the ladies around town to her house. Aiden and I were also invited, but we didn't attend all the time. The last time, Aiden convinced me to go, saying it would be fun. It was the opposite of fun. We arrived at the party, and as usual, Violet paid very little attention to me. I kept to myself but joined the conversation when they talked about something other than Violet's job. However, the topic always reverted to Violet's job, and she started bragging about her high-paying position in our small town. I dreaded this discussion because I knew Violet would find something snarky to say to me again, and I was right. Violet began by saying, "So the company is being taken over by a new owner. I heard they will finalize the papers tomorrow. You know how I'm friends with the CEO, so I get all the information firsthand. I also heard some rumors about me getting a promotion once the new management is in place. It would be nice if the new owner promoted you. You are already in a good position, so they might want to promote you after the new owner takes over the company. I am sure that will happen. I'm sure it would be great, Mom. You'll be a top employee in the company. That's what you've always wanted," Aiden said. "Don't you have anything to say about this, Mary?" Violet turned to me with a smirk, intentionally targeting me out of the blue. I was staying out of the conversation because I knew who was taking over the company and didn't want to reveal it to anyone. But Violet wouldn't miss the opportunity to try and humiliate me, so she directly questioned me. Aiden looked nervous because he knew his mother was doing this intentionally. He was already embarrassed, and his face turned grim. I simply smiled at Violet and tried to keep the conversation light by saying, "I'm very happy for you, Violet. I'm sure your work performance will help you get a nice promotion. We will have a big celebration when that happens." "Oh, you don't have to act so innocent, Mary. I know you're jealous of me." "Excuse me? What are you talking about, Violet?" You think I don't notice anything, Mary? I've seen how you look annoyed and dejected when I talk about my work. I know you're jealous because you work a low-paying job. With all due respect, Violet, I am very happy at my job. Yes, I had to take a pay cut to work from home. But what can I do? There aren't a lot of jobs around in this town, so I had to choose a remote job. There is no reason to be shy, Mary. You can just say that you're not qualified enough for a job. I live in the same town and still have a way better job than you. I guess that college degree of yours is really for show. I don't have one, but look at me. I'm wealthier than you and have a way better job. As I said, Violet, I'm really happy for you. I'm glad you found a good job despite not having a college degree. As for your wealth, I don't have much interest in it. I do pretty well for myself. Oh, I've seen how you try to compete with me and get expensive things to match my lifestyle. You need to stop doing that, you know. You need to preserve your little income just in case you get kicked out of your job. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but don't go out of your way to compete with me. Violet knew exactly how to twist reality to her benefit. She had no idea that I came from a wealthy family, so every time I bought something expensive, she thought I was trying to imitate her. Even if I didn't have her wealth, she made it seem like I was competing with her and trying to one-up her. It was super embarrassing, and everyone around us was giggling. It was a party with Violet's friends, and most of them were like her. No one wanted to piss Violet off and risk not getting invited to her grand parties. So they just laughed along with her while she made fun of me. I was so embarrassed and felt so humiliated that I wanted to dig a hole and bury myself. I didn't know how to stop Violet's nonsense. Thankfully, my husband was on my side and said, "No one is competing with you, Mom. You need to watch how you talk to my wife. I won't allow you to continually disrespect her like this. Relax, Aiden. I'm just looking out for both of you. I don't want you to be hooked to debts just because your wife is dead set on competing with me. She needs to stop being so jealous and work harder to get a better job." "I'm working hard, Violet. I'm better qualified than you and can definitely make more money if I want," I responded. "There's no need to lie, Mary. I get it that you're embarrassed, but don't take it to heart. I know you will never reach my level." "We will see, Violet. You may have a very high-paying job now, but there is no guarantee for the future. I know that I can get a better job than you, and one day I will show you that." I was so mad at Violet that I said those words and left the party. Aiden followed me and left with me as well. On our way back home, I started to cry while Aiden drove us back. I felt utterly humiliated at the party and knew that Violet had successfully painted me as a jealous woman. I had to defend myself, but no matter what I said, there was no denying one fact. Violet had a better job than me. I was crushed because moving cities and taking a pay cut had affected my confidence. It hurt a lot to work in a low-paying position after working so hard in college. I did it only because Aiden wanted to stay closer to his mother, who didn't have anyone else. We sacrificed a lot and moved to Violet's town because of her, but she was being nothing but nasty to me. When we reached home, I was still a crying mess. Aiden brought me inside and hugged me while I cried. Then he said, "I'm so sorry, Mary. This is all my fault. I shouldn't have insisted on going today. Your mother is a horrible woman, Aiden. She tried to paint me as a jealous person. I don't know why she likes to demean me every time she sees me. I guess Mom is just jealous of you, Mary. What you said was true. You can get a better job than her. But you had to step down because you moved here with me. She's also jealous because you were smarter and actually went to college. It's something she is scared of. Anyway, I don't know how much longer I can take her horrible behavior, Aiden. I don't care why she's doing this. I just want it to stop. It's already a sensitive topic for me, and she keeps rubbing it in my face. I feel horrible for doing this to you, Mary. You moved here because of me, and now you're being humiliated for no reason. I tried to talk to my mom about this, but you know how she is. She's just full of herself." "I know, Aiden. I don't blame you. I know you moved here because you wanted to be close to your mother. I've seen what her recent health problem did to you. I don't blame you. But I am blaming myself, Mary. I feel terrible. You know what? We should avoid seeing Mom for a while. It would be best under the circumstances. She needs to be on a timeout." I was glad Aiden suggested that. I really didn't want to face Violet anymore. I was furious with her and didn't want her around, but there was another thing I had to worry about. If I encouraged Aiden to keep Violet away, she would use this opportunity to call me jealous again. It was an overall horrible situation, and I didn't know what to do. I told Aiden to sleep on it that night while I, too, took time to wonder what I was going to do. There was a plan in my mind, but I didn't know how to go about it. I was determined to show Violet that she was nothing compared to me and teach her a lesson about her own vanity. I knew what I could do but needed to be sure about my decision. The next day, I got a call from my father, Dave. Dad always called me after closing a big deal because he wanted me to be proud of him. It was a little tradition we had. This time was no different. "Hello, my dear daughter, how are you?" he said. "I'm doing fine, Dad. How are things on your end?" "Guess what, Mary? I closed the deal on the company I've been talking about. I bought it today." "Congratulations, Dad. I'm so proud of you. This is another victory for your company. I'm sure you'll be able to expand it much more this year." "Oh, I will, Mary. I wish you worked with me, though. You didn't have to be so stubborn and work elsewhere for experience. It's all for you, Dad. I'm working hard so that I can make you proud when I finally work with you. I hope it happens soon, my dear. I must admit one thing to you. This is why I bought the biggest company in your town. Otherwise, maybe I wouldn't have bothered." I was surprised to know that my father had bought the company because he wanted me to work with him. If you're confused about what happened, let me explain. You see, my father had actually bought the company where my mother-in-law worked. I knew that from the very beginning. I didn't tell anyone because Dad didn't like revealing these things before the deal was closed. So I didn't even tell Aiden, let alone Violet, that the company was being taken over by my father. Now that my father had told me about the deal being signed, I could tell Aiden about it. But first, there was another important issue I needed to talk about with my father. "Dad, you are really getting desperate to make me join your company." "What can I say, Mary? I miss you, and I wanted to have this special experience with you. I've been thinking about making your mother-in-law the CEO at this place so that we can keep the high post within the family. She already works in a high position there anyway." "My God, Dad, you really do think about everyone. Only you can see your daughter's in-laws as your own family." "What can I say? Your family is also my family. So what do you think, Mary? Should I make your mother-in-law the CEO?" My father was just trying to look out for me and bought this company so that he could be closer to me. I knew he was offering my mother-in-law the job only because he thought I was interested in taking it. I did tell my dad that I wanted more time the last time we spoke, but now I had an entirely different plan in mind. I smirked and said, "Actually, Dad, I don't think you should give the position to my mother-in-law." "Wait, what? You don't want me to make your mother-in-law the CEO?" "No, but you can make me the CEO instead." "Seriously, Mary? You would take that position? Don't tell me you're joking and playing with your poor father's feelings." "I'm not joking, Dad. I want to work in your company now. I think I already have enough experience. Besides, I don't want Violet to be the CEO at all." "Oh, why is that, Mary? Did something happen?" "Actually, a lot of things happened, Dad." I went on to explain to my father what had happened with Violet. I told him the whole story that I had never told him before. My father can be very protective, and I didn't want him to be rude to Violet when he came to visit us. Besides, I rarely shared my personal troubles with my dad because I didn't want to bother him. But this time, I had to tell him what went down between me and Violet. My dad patiently listened to me, and by the time I was done talking, he was pissed at Violet. "What in the world, Mary? I had no idea that your mother-in-law was so condescending. She's a nasty woman." "It is what it is, Dad, and that's why I don't want her to have the position of CEO. If you give me that position, I would have a chance to show her that I can be her boss." "What do you mean by if?" "I would make you the CEO. The position is all yours, Mary. You would have been the first choice. I only mentioned Violet because I thought you weren't ready to work with me. I do feel ready, Dad. Maybe I was just scared of the responsibility. I didn't want to let you down. But I think my fears are irrational. I'm ready to tackle this new position. I feel confident." "That's my girl, Mary. I know you will do great. Don't worry, the position of CEO is yours." I talked to my father some more and then hung up. He was supposed to drive to my town fairly soon for a takeover party and to have a meeting with the management team. This was the time when Dad had planned to reveal that I would be their new CEO. Their old CEO was actually being transferred to our city branch because he was good at his job and deserved a better position. He was super happy to switch with me because the move had increased his salary. In the following days, I ended up telling Aiden the whole story. He was super happy for me and actually chuckled when I asked him if he was mad that I took the position from his mother. He simply told me that his mother had managed to get a high-paying position only because she knew the previous employee personally. Even my husband thought that I deserved this more than her. I was just glad that he wasn't mad at me. That would have ruined my whole experience and set me back mentally. Anyway, the day of the takeover party soon arrived. I attended the party, but Violet didn't, so she still didn't know who took over the company and that I was her boss now. When she saw me at her office waiting for the big meeting, she looked surprised and said, "What are you doing here, Mary?" "I guess you haven't heard then. I am part of this company now." "I see. Well, the low-paying employees have their desks on the ground floor. You can find your desk there. Actually, my office will be here, and I have a meeting here in like 5 minutes." Is this some kind of a joke? Don't try to fake your job just to one-up me, Mary. This meeting is only for the higher-ups. We will meet the new owner and find out who is replacing our old CEO. I guess you don't know this either, Violet. Well, you don't have to go to the meeting to find out who is the owner and the new CEO. Let me tell you, Violet, I am the new CEO. What? No, that is impossible. You can't be the new CEO. Why not, Violet? I'm more qualified and even have some experience. Besides, the owner is actually my father, so it's natural for me to be the CEO. Are you telling me that this company belongs to Dave? That is impossible. Nothing is impossible, Violet. You like to flaunt your wealth, but not everyone is like that. My family is actually pretty well off and owns several companies. I never worked there because I was collecting experience from other companies. But thanks to you, I got the push to finally do what I need to do and become the new CEO here. No, this can't be true. These are lies. I told you that one day I will get a better job than you. Looks like I did it, Violet. Now you can go cry to someone else and try to tell them how they are insecure and jealous of you. Violet opened her mouth to say something but was cut off when my father entered the room with other employees. He politely greeted Violet while she stared at him in disbelief. She looked like she was about to pass out. Dad swiftly ignored her and started the meeting. When he finally introduced me as the new CEO, Violet's eyes went wide. She eyed me in envy, and whenever I wasn't looking at her, she even left the party soon after and didn't stay long. I guess she was embarrassed because her words had come back to bite her. I became the new CEO of the company Violet worked at. She had a hard time having me as a boss too. She was actually not a very good performer and was only in the company because of the previous owner's friendship. When I took over, I gave her several warnings to improve her work. She went crying to Aiden and said that I was bullying her. When she explained to him why I had scolded her, Aiden sided with me and told Violet that she was being unethical and wasn't doing her job well. In the end, after multiple mistakes, I had to demote her. She wasn't happy about it and cried to everyone. But now no one wanted to go against me because I was the most respected woman in the company. Eventually, we settled in pretty well in the small town. In a twist of events, Aiden and I ended up going low contact with Violet after she continuously blamed me for demoting her. We tried to explain our reasons, but she didn't listen. In the end, this, along with her previous behavior, made us have low contact. Aiden is the one who checks up on her sometimes, but even he is put off by Violet's behavior. We are now planning to move cities after 4 years once Dad's company is making good progress here. Then, we will be moving to my dad's city so that I can take over his main branch. Violet found out and is throwing a massive tantrum right now. Thankfully, even Aiden isn't listening to her anymore. My name is Robert, and I'm a hard-working single father who raised my son, Dexter, with all the love and care I could muster. Dexter was the center of my world, especially after his mother abandoned us when he was just a toddler. I worked tirelessly, holding down 2 jobs to keep our family afloat and provide everything Dexter needed. Times were tough, but I never once regretted the sacrifices I made for my son. Eventually, my hard work paid off. I received a significant promotion at one of my jobs, and financial stability became a reality. This allowed me to quit my other job and save enough to purchase a house, a symbol of our success and a place we could call home. I felt indescribable joy at finally being able to spoil my son, and spoil him I did. Since it was always the 2 of us, Dexter and I shared a very special bond. Our bond was unbreakable, and I cherished every moment with him. As the years went by, Dexter grew up to be just as successful as I had hoped. I vividly remember the day he got married. My heart swelled with pride and joy as I witnessed his union. For a few years, life was pure bliss. My bond with Dexter grew stronger every day. We were more than just father and son, we were best friends. We shared laughter, tears, and countless memorable moments. I loved him with all my heart, and I could see the same love reflected in his eyes. We supported each other through thick and thin, celebrating successes and comforting each other in times of hardship. Our relationship was a rock-solid foundation that gave us strength and made life feel complete. Dexter was my pride, my joy, and my reason for pushing through any challenges that came our way. Then one day, Dexter approached me with some information he had discovered. "Dad, I found out something important, and I wanted to talk to you about it." "What is it? You seem worried." "Well, I came across some information that says if we transfer the house into my name, you'll be eligible for full coverage health insurance. I know it's a big decision, but I really think it's worth considering for your well-being." "Oh, I see. You're concerned about my health, aren't you? That's thoughtful of you." "Of course, Dad. You've always been there for me, and I want to make sure you're taken care of too. This way we can have peace of mind knowing that if anything happens to your health, you'll be covered." "Thank you, Dex. It means a lot to me that you're looking out for my best interests. Let me take some time to think it over, okay? It's a big decision to transfer the house, and I want to make sure I fully understand the implications." "Absolutely. Take your time. I just want you to know that I'll support whatever decision you make. Your well-being is what matters most to me. How about we revisit this topic in a few days? Once I've had a chance to gather more information and consider all the options, we'll make the decision that's best for both of us." "Sounds good, Dad. Remember, I'm here for you no matter what. Just let me know if you need any help or have any questions." "Thank you, son. Your support means a great deal to me. We'll discuss this further soon, I promise." Touched by his care, I researched the details and found out that the benefits would kick in after 5 years. Believing in my good health and overwhelmed by love for my son, I decided to transfer the house deed to Dexter. I presented it as a heartfelt gift on his birthday, and his gratitude knew no bounds. I felt a surge of happiness and contentment, thinking I had made the right choice. However, my joy quickly crumbled when Dexter's wife called me a few weeks later. She revealed that Dexter had been cheating on her for the past year with a 25-year-old woman. Disgust and disappointment washed over me like a tidal wave. In a fit of rage, I called Dexter, hoping for some form of regret and an explanation. "Hi, Dex. We need to talk." "Sure, Dad. What's up?" "Your wife called me and told me something that deeply troubles me. Is it true that you've been cheating on her?" "Look, Dad, it's my personal life. I don't see why it's any of your business. Yes, I've been seeing someone else. But that's between me and my wife. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Cheating is a betrayal of trust, not just to your wife, but to the values and morals I raised you with. I'm disappointed in your actions." "Well, I didn't come here to discuss my personal life or disappoint you. Also, since I've taken ownership of the house, I expect you to move out within a month. It would be weird for me and my mistress to live with you. You can't be serious. I transferred the house to you believing you cared about my well-being. Now you're kicking me out without any consideration or remorse." "Look, Dad, this is how it is. The house is mine now, and I have my own life to live. Find somewhere else to live. I don't have time for this right now. I can't believe this is happening. I raised you with love and sacrificed so much for your future. I expected better from you, Dex. Is this how little our relationship means to you?" "Relationships change, and right now, this is what's best for me. I suggest you start packing and figure out your living arrangements. I can't believe this is how you treat your family. I never imagined you'd become so heartless." "Fine, I'll find a new place, but remember, blood ties can't be severed, and trust once broken is not easily repaired." "Save the melodrama, Dad. It's just a house. You'll find somewhere else to live, I'm sure. Goodbye." I had no control over the house, and with a heavy heart, I had no choice but to leave. My heart shattered into a million pieces as I packed my belongings and left the house I had worked so hard for. The pain of betrayal ran deep, and I couldn't fathom how my own flesh and blood could kick me out without remorse. It was a blow that struck at the core of my being. The knowledge that Dexter had married his mistress only intensified the agony. It made me question my abilities as a father. Did I not raise him well enough? Did I fail to instill in him the values of loyalty and respect? Doubts crept into my mind, fueling my anguish. Seeing Dexter move on so easily, building a life with the very person he had cheated on his wife with, was a dagger to my heart. It felt like the years I spent nurturing him, sacrificing for him, and loving him unconditionally were all in vain. I couldn't help but wonder where I had gone wrong. The pain of being discarded, replaced, and forgotten by my own son was almost unbearable. I struggled to make sense of the situation, grappling with a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a profound sense of loss. The wounds inflicted by Dexter's betrayal continued to fester, leaving me emotionally scared. Cutting off all contact with him was an act of self-preservation. I needed distance to heal, to find some semblance of peace amidst the chaos. In the years that followed, I fought to rebuild myself, to find solace in the knowledge that I deserved better. The pain of Dexter's betrayal never truly disappeared, but with time, I learned to carry it with grace and dignity, using it as a reminder of the resilience within me. 4 years passed, and just as I began to heal from the pain, the mistress Jenna showed up at my door. She introduced herself as Dexter's soon-to-be ex-wife. That made me raise an eyebrow. She told me she would love to explain further and asked that she could come in. I was a little apprehensive at first, but my curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to know what she meant by ex-wife. I invited her in and grabbed her a glass of water. We settled down on separate armchairs, and I asked her to explain what she meant. While doing a deep clean of the house, I stumbled upon a photo album from Dexter's previous marriage. When I confronted him about it, he admitted that he was married when we started dating. I was shocked. How could he deceive me like that? He didn't tell you? Wow, I thought you knew. I can assure you I had no idea. Well, I'm sorry that he deceived you like that. Naturally, I needed some space to process everything, but Dexter begged me not to leave him. He even confessed that he deceived his father just to be with me. That was the final straw. I couldn't stay with someone who would not only defraud his own family, but also continue to deceive those he claimed to love. I understand your anger, Jenna. I completely share your sentiment. But what exactly does this have to do with me? Why did you come here? I want to seek revenge, not just for myself, but for you too. We both deserve justice and the chance to regain our dignity. Together, we can make him face the consequences of his actions. I appreciate your concern and offer to help, but revenge, is that really the answer? I don't know if it's the right answer, but it's an answer. Dexter needs to learn the consequences of his actions, especially his hurtful ones. You're right, Jenna. I appreciate your determination and willingness to support me. Let's make him realize the magnitude of his wrongdoings and ensure that he doesn't continue to hurt others. I'm glad you're on board. Together, we'll show Dexter that he can't manipulate and deceive the people who love him without consequences. With her expertise as a real estate agent, Jenna unveiled a plan to target Dexter's vulnerabilities. She revealed that the transfer of the house while I was still alive had led Dexter to pay higher property taxes, nearly depleting his funds. They relied solely on Jenna's earnings to survive. Furthermore, since they hadn't signed a prenup, half of the house's value was entitled to her as marital property. Jenna had already served Dexter the divorce papers, and he quickly realized he needed her support to stay afloat. In desperation, Dexter offered to sell his share of the house to Jenna. This is where I entered the picture. I have a proposition for you. What if I sell you the house back at the same rate I bought it from Dexter? What? Jenna, are you sure? Absolutely. But why would you do that, selling it back to me for a fraction of its original price? I'm truly sorry for being the reason you were kicked out of your own home. I want you to have back the house that you've worked so hard for, Robert. It's the least I can do to make amends for the pain and suffering you endured. I don't know what to say. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. I can't begin to express in words. You really don't have to do this, but I appreciate your kindness and consideration. You deserve to have your home back. It's important to me that you regain what was rightfully yours. You've been through so much, and I want you to heal and find some sense of justice. Thank you, Jenna. Really, your gesture means more to me than words can express. I accept your offer with deep gratitude. We'll work together to make things right again. With our alliance forged, Jenna and I delved deeper into our plan for revenge against Dexter. She took charge of collecting evidence, meticulously gathering proof of his infidelity. Once Jenna had a solid case against Dexter, she took matters into her own hands and sent the evidence to his bosses. Their workplace had strict rules regarding ethical behavior, and infidelity was a breach of trust they couldn't overlook. The consequences were swift and severe. Dexter was terminated from his job. The satisfaction I felt was bittersweet. While revenge may not have been the ideal path to healing, seeing Dexter face the repercussions of his actions brought a small measure of justice. It served as a reminder that one could not escape the consequences of their choices, no matter how powerful or untouchable they may feel. Jenna's strategic move not only stripped Dexter of his employment but also left him in a vulnerable state. Now, Dexter found himself homeless and jobless, the consequences of his actions crashing down upon him in his desperation. Dexter reached out to me, seeking refuge. He recounted his miseries, hoping I would offer assistance. "Dad, I'm in a tough spot. I'm staying with a friend right now, but I can't stay here for much longer. I don't have anywhere else to go. Could you help me by letting me stay at your place? I know things are hard for you right now, but it's not easy for me to welcome you back so soon after what happened. I just bought the house back from Jenna, and your betrayal still hurts." "You bought the house back? Why would you do that?" "Because she recognized the importance of this house and the hard work I poured into buying it the first time, better than my son did." "Oh, you're being unfair. It's where I grew up, and I feel like I should have the right to be there. I get that it's meaningful to you, but trust was broken. It's going to take time for me to heal from what you did. I can't just forget the pain and invite you back without considering my own feelings. It's not fair. I need a place to stay, and I thought you would be there for me, especially since you're my father. I'm not completely abandoning you. I have a compromise. You can come back, but you'll have to pay rent and stay for a limited time. That's the best I can do right now, given the situation." "Fine, if that's my only option, but I didn't think you would actually treat me like this. I'm glad you understand how I felt." Throughout Dexter's 4 months stayed in a house I had once called home, I remained detached and aloof, intentionally keeping my distance. Gone were the days of warm conversations and shared laughter. It was a deliberate choice on my part, a reflection of the deep disappointment and hurt that Dexter had inflicted upon me. When Dexter finally mustered the courage to question my changed demeanor, I didn't hold back. "Dad, why are you treating me differently? What happened between us?" "You can't honestly ask me that question, Dex. With everything that you did, I can't be close to someone who betrayed their partner not once but twice, and who used and betrayed me in the process too. It hurt me deeply and shook me to my core. But Dad, I made some stupid mistakes. Can you forgive me? You got your house back. I'm back. Everything's fine." Mistakes. These were more than just mistakes. I made so many sacrifices for you, working tirelessly to give you a better life, yet you chose to ignore my struggles and betray the values I taught you. Things aren't fine, Dex. If I recall correctly, relationships change, right? You told me that when you kicked me out of the house. I gave you so much love, and you're right. Relationships change. This is a change you have to deal with. I never meant to hurt you, Dad. I'm sorry for what I've done. Sorry isn't enough. You turned your back on me, ignoring the loyalty and respect I hold dear. It's not easy for me to forgive or forget. I understand, Dad. I hope you know that I genuinely regret my actions. It will take time to rebuild trust and heal the wounds. I hope you understand that. The disappointment hung heavy in the air as I spoke, my voice laced with a mixture of hurt and frustration. I made it clear that I couldn't continue to support or embrace someone who had shown such disregard for the love and care I had poured into him. The wounds were still fresh, and forgiveness seemed like a distant possibility. With a heavy heart, I watched as Dexter absorbed my words, the weight of his actions sinking in. The pain in his eyes mirrored my own, but it was a pain that he had brought upon himself. At that moment, I realized that sometimes tough love is necessary to uphold one's own principles and protect oneself from further harm. Our encounter marked a turning point in our relationship, a painful but necessary step towards healing. I couldn't help but hope that Dexter would learn from his mistakes and come to understand the depth of the hurt he had caused. Only time would tell if redemption was within his grasp. But for now, I needed to focus on my own healing and finding a way to move forward without the burden of betrayal weighing me down. And so the story comes to its fitting end. Dexter, once a prince in his own kingdom, found himself stripped of everything he held dear. He lost his wife, or should I say, wives, his house, and his family. Dexter lived out his 4-month tenure in my house, facing the consequences of his actions and the weight of his betrayal. As he departed, I made it clear that I had no intention of rekindling the father-son relationship we once had. Dexter, aware of the irreparable damage he had caused, was left to rebuild his life, facing the consequences of his choices. Life has a funny way of teaching us lessons we never asked for. Through this arduous journey, I realized that redemption could be found even in the face of betrayal. Jenna and I were able to restore justice to our lives and reclaim our dignity. While Dexter may have learned the hard way, I hope he finds the opportunity to reflect on his choices and grow as a person. Hello everyone, this is Ruby, a single parent who once had a beautiful family. This story is about how my husband lost the love of his wife and children. It happened a while back, and I'm already on the road to recovery. I wanted to share my story so that no one makes the mistakes I did. I'm an avid painter and have always loved art. I've been passionate about it since I was a child, inspired by my mother, who was a painter herself. Although she never made it big, I admired her work. We came from a humble background, with my father being the breadwinner. Despite not working, my dad cherished and praised my mom for taking care of our family. Naturally, I assumed that love and respect were enough for a good marriage. I was wrong. I was a shy, introverted kid in school with no friends. My grades were okay, but nothing special. My dream was to go to art school, and my parents supported me unconditionally. My life was set until I met Chris in high school. Chris and I studied together for a few years without interacting. One day, he approached me. "Hello, you're Ruby, right? I'm Chris, your classmate. I don't think we talked before." "Hi, Chris. What's up?" "Actually, I need a favor. I've seen your sketches in the school locker, and I must say, you're extremely talented." "Thank you. I'm glad you like them. It's Mother's Day next week, and I was thinking of giving her some of your sketches. Can you please sketch my mom? In return, I can help you with your math homework for a week." "I'd be happy to help, Chris. I actually hate math, so I'm good with the arrangement." "Great. How about we meet a coffee shop for the exchange? The treat is on me." I was ecstatic that someone found my sketches interesting enough to make them a gift. That's how I started spending time with Chris. Our meetings at the coffee shop quickly turned into dates. Chris was a straight-A student with a bright future, and I was flattered that he made time for me. He stood up against bullies and was loved by everyone. It was easy to love him. Chris dreamed of getting a business degree and taking his father's small company to the next level. It's my dream to take my father's business to the next level. I'm so proud of what he's created, and one day, I hope to make it even more successful. And I'm sure you will. I have faith in you. You'll definitely get into your dream college. I hope you get to study art and remain passionate about it. You have lots of potential. I connect with you because of your passion for art. I guess we're similar in many ways. I love that you value my passion. You've accompanied me to all my competitions and stood by me for so long. I remember when I won a prize for painting, you cheered the loudest. I was happy to have such a supportive boyfriend. He introduced me to his family before our prom, and I liked them immediately. They were great parents to Chris. I developed a close relationship with his mom, Tammy, and we hung out a lot before I left for art school. Chris joined a prestigious college as a business major, and we were both following our dreams. I even took him to meet my parents on Christmas, and they loved him as much as I did. Sadly, when I was still in college, my parents passed away in a car accident. I was devastated. Chris was my rock through it all, helping me arrange the funeral and calming me down during panic attacks. Despite the pain and grief, I thought I could rely on him for anything, but I was wrong. 6 months after my parents passed away, I found out I was pregnant. It was a mix of happiness and anxiety. I had just lost my parents and didn't know how I was going to take care of a baby. My studies were taxing and balancing everything became difficult. Tammy moved closer to help babysit my child while I was in college. Chris's father was in a different state, so he didn't mind if Tammy lived with me. With everything in place, we looked forward to the birth of our baby boy. My family supported me whenever I needed it. However, after my son Daniel was born, everything came crashing down. I had a traumatic delivery and struggled to recover. In the end, I had to drop out of college. Postpartum depression and physical problems made it impossible for me to study. I was heartbroken, but my son needed me to be okay. Tammy and Chris were my biggest support during this time. However, Chris slowly became resentful. "You know, I can't help but think this is your fault. I can rarely go out anymore while you're having a great time being home with Daniel. I'm the one working hard to provide for the two of you. I'm sorry, Chris. You know I'm still in recovery. I'm trying my best to look for a job, but Daniel is very young, and we can't afford a babysitter. Tammy is already working hard to help. Just give me some time. I will find something. What job will hire you anyway? You have a useless degree that won't get you a job. You already spent most of your inheritance on medical bills. You're literally useless right now. Don't say that, Chris. You knew studying art was my passion. You were so supportive of me when I joined college. I never imagined I would be in this situation. If there was any way I could help you, I would. Just give me a few months to find a job. Chris simply got up and left. That night, I cried a lot after putting Daniel to sleep. His words kept ringing in my ears. I decided to start looking for jobs as soon as possible, no matter what. I was determined to ease Chris's burden. Chris later called and apologized for his behavior, explaining that he was feeling down and his friends were putting ideas into his head. I forgave him immediately. Within a week, I found a job. It didn't pay much, but it was enough for the time being. Cammy took up most of the childcare while I worked. I made Chris quit his job so he could concentrate on his studies. I didn't want him to overwork himself while studying. Times were rough, but we made it work. Chris slowly changed his behavior toward me and promised to take care of me when he became financially independent. I told him that I loved him and only wanted him to achieve his dreams. After Chris graduated from college, he took over the family business. His father, who was suffering from a heart condition, passed away within a year of Chris joining the business. Chris did his best to improve the company, and his efforts were slowly starting to pay off. I had to quit my job to look after Daniel because Tammy was grieving, and we didn't want to burden her with Daniel's care. Chris was making enough money to support us, so he wasn't bothered by my decision to stay home. Soon his business really took off, and he achieved his dream. I was happy for him and organized big celebrations to honor his success. One day, I approached Chris and expressed my desire to return to art school. I still had some inheritance money left that could pay for 1 year, and after that, I planned to take up jobs to fund my education. However, Chris was not receptive to the idea. Why do you want to go back to school? An art degree is useless anyway. It's not going to help you get a job. I think you shouldn't waste money on this. This was my dream, Chris. You know I wanted to become a painter. You achieved your dream. What about me? Well, my dream is bringing in the money. Yours is just a useless hobby. What good will that do for us? My friends will laugh at me for your dumb degree. I have to maintain our standards. You should be a housewife. Daniel needs you more. I was stunned and didn't know how to react. We argued for days without reaching a resolution. However, I was preparing myself to prove him wrong. I wanted to become successful and achieve my dream. Sadly, this was never to be as I found out I was pregnant again, this time with a baby girl. Chris became even more insistent that I stay at home, arguing that he worked long hours and the kids needed someone at home. Reluctantly, I agreed to focus on my children. They were my world, and I was willing to do everything for them. My second birth was less traumatic, but managing a toddler and a baby was extremely difficult. Chris was absolutely no help. All he did was work and complain about being tired. He never looked after the kids. I was surprised when Chris finally proposed to me. I thought he was trying to improve, and that made me happy. We had a big wedding, which was extremely fun to plan. Chris pampered me throughout the process, and I believed he was doing it to make me happy. It turned out he was doing it to maintain his image of a loving husband. After the wedding, it was as if I no longer existed to Chris. He worked all day in his office, and there were no date nights or even family nights. He never picked up after himself and only ordered me around. The kids missed their dad, who wanted to be left alone when he was at home. I never asked him for help after he ignored my requests in the first year. However, my children's pain was getting to me. One day, I said, Chris, why don't we have a family outing this weekend? The kids really miss you. You know I have a business meeting this weekend. I'm busy. But you need to make time for your family, Chris. We're important too. Daniel has been crying for you. You even missed his poem recital. What can I do, Ruby? I don't have the luxury to stay at home with them like you do. At least someone has to earn money, right? A failure like you wouldn't understand. I suggest you stop telling me what to do. Chris, what is wrong with you? Why are you insulting me like that? You know I wanted to go back to college, but you didn't let me. Of course I didn't. Why would I let you waste money on that? You were better off investing it in my business. Look how much money it's bringing us. Extremely hurt by what he had said, I started to see past his neglect over the years. However, it really hurt when he insulted me like that. It made me feel worthless. I should have walked away from him, but I didn't. I wanted my children to have both parents under one roof. I thought Chris was just stressed and would apologize later. The apology never came. As the years passed, the kids grew older and started to notice Chris's behavior. They were no longer attached to him. Gloria never experienced him as a loving parent, so she had no attachment to her dad. Daniel remembered his dad being more loving in the past, but the disappointment of Chris missing every milestone quickly added up. I tried everything to make the bad feelings disappear. I begged Chris to pay more attention to the children. You need to make time for the kids, Chris. I'm already working hard and looking after them. I'm the only one taking up parental duties. I know you don't want me anymore, but the kids are suffering. They've already become detached from you. I know how to be a parent, Ruby. I'm the one feeding the three of you. You don't have to lecture me about improving our relationship. When Daniel became a teenager, he started to resent his dad. I tried to make him understand that Chris loved them, but he wouldn't believe me. All his friends had fathers who were present in their lives, and he felt like he was missing out. I was there for all his events and achievements, but he wanted his dad there too. One night, while we were having dinner, Daniel confronted Chris. Hey Dad, are you free this weekend? Gloria has been pestering us for a picnic. The weather is getting better, and it's the perfect time. Yes, it would be a great opportunity to hang out together. I'll make all the preparations. What do you think, Chris? No can do. I'm going golfing with my buddies. Can't change my plans. It's one day, and you can't make time for us? Why did you even become a dad if you didn't want to be around us? Watch your mouth, Daniel. I am your father, and you will respect me. I actually have work to do instead of sitting around like your loser mother. Ruby, what are you teaching my children? They don't even respect me anymore. I thought you just failed in your career, but it turns out you can't even be a good mother. Stop insulting Mom. She's a way better parent than you are. How do you expect her to have a career when you never helped her out? I'm not blind, you know. I saw what happened all these years. Stop it, Daniel. There's no use telling him these things. We have Mama, and that's enough. We can just go out with Mom and Grandma. See, at least one of you has some sense. I hope that ends this stupid discussion. It's okay, kids. I will take you out for a picnic. We'll plan something without Dad. I didn't want to make Daniel or Chris angry, but I noticed that Gloria, who had remained apathetic towards her father, did not take his side at all. She simply didn't care for his time or attention. I always thought it was my fault. I could have fought harder with Chris to spend more time with us. But he never listened to me. By then, I also found out he had been cheating on me with one of his business friends. I didn't confront him. I knew it would be useless. Daniel graduated high school and left at the first opportunity, joining a prestigious college to study software engineering. Gloria, however, was determined to follow in my footsteps. She was an even better artist than me and was adamant about joining art school. Daniel supported her, encouraging her to go for it, but I knew Chris would be furious. When the conversation finally happened, it went like this. Gloria, you will be graduating this year. Do you have a plan? I mean, what are you even good at? Don't talk to her like that. She is a good student, Chris. Well, I'm going to art school. Don't worry. I don't expect you to know what I am good at, Dad. I have Mom, Daniel, and my teachers for that. Art school. Ruby, did you fill my daughter's head with your nonsense again? Gloria, you should know better than to waste your life like your mother. Do you want to be a failure like her? Mom failed only because she had a husband like you. Thankfully, I have all the support and talent I need to be successful. Don't talk to me like that. There is no way I'm paying for this useless degree. Well, you don't have to. My teachers say I would get a good scholarship in no time. I don't care if you don't support me. It's nothing new. Calm down, guys. Chris, Gloria is really good at what she does, even better than me. Please try to be supportive this one time. Chris just kept shouting at me for spoiling his children, again calling me a failure in front of Gloria. After all these years of abuse, I had enough. I sent Gloria to her room before tearing into my husband. I told him that I was tired of him not appreciating me at all. I am tired of your verbal abuse, Chris. You have been a horrible husband to me. The only reason I stayed was because of the children. If I had known you'd be such a bad father, I would have walked away sooner. Don't you dare call me a bad father. I'm the one putting food on the table. You're all nothing without me and my money. I would have made something of myself if you didn't stop me. You can keep your money, Chris. I don't need it. I'm getting a divorce after Gloria graduates. I am done with you. You can't leave me after everything I have done for you. I deserve better from everyone. Done what, Chris? Cheat on me with your colleague? I know it all, Chris. There's no need for you to be a victim. I am the victim here. You deserve nothing, and you definitely don't deserve me. Chris was absolutely dumbstruck by my onslaught. When I was done talking, he had his head in his hands and said nothing, as if he didn't care anymore. The next few days, I started to prepare for my exit. I talked to Tammy, Daniel, and Gloria about my decision. All of them were supportive of me. I'm sorry he did this to you, Ruby. I don't know where I went wrong with him. His father would be disappointed with him. I can't believe he did this to you, Tammy said. Tammy, it's not your fault. You have been nothing but kind to me and my children. Chris is the only one responsible for his behavior. I served Chris divorce papers just after Gloria's graduation. Chris acted like he didn't see it coming, begging me to reconsider and promising he would do better. He approached me and said, Ruby, please don't go through with the divorce. Give me a chance. I know I messed up. I still love you a lot, Ruby. I want to get better. Even the kids hate me. Don't leave me like this. You have made your bed, Chris, and now you have to lie in it. I stayed for too long. I gave you plenty of chances. I can't do it anymore. This marriage was over when you stopped putting in effort and cheated on me. I don't love her, Ruby. She was just an escape from the stress. She doesn't mean anything to me. I'm sorry I wasn't supportive of you. I can change if you just have faith in me. I don't care anymore, Chris. You have taken away every last bit of dignity I had. It's time to leave you for good. I deserve better than you. Having a baby was life-altering for me. As the youngest child in my family, I was used to being taken care of all my life. But when I had my son, I knew everything would change. However, I couldn't have anticipated just how rocky the start of my motherhood journey would be. Hi, I'm Gwen, and at the age of 26, I had my first child. My son Heath was everything to me and my husband Hugh. From the moment I heard him cry in the hospital, I knew I was going to dedicate my entire life to him. After all, that's what parents do, right? Well, it doesn't go that way for every parent. This is where Hugh's mom, Trish, comes in. Trish, who had recently gotten divorced for the second time, came to stay with us. She wasn't in the best mental shape and had nowhere else to go. She had Hugh when she was very young, and the divorce had left him with a lot of emotional baggage. When I married Hugh, I learned that Trish had just had another child, which was surprising given her age. She and her ex-husband thought they could save their marriage by having a child, but it fell apart anyway, and she lost custody. When we brought Heath home from the hospital, Trish was over the moon. She would hang around his cradle for hours, just staring at him in awe. While I was somewhat glad she was around, I could sense that she missed the daughter she wouldn't see grow up. One day, as we were settling in, Trish asked, So, what are you going to name him? I bet he looks like a Raymond or a Carlo. Those are pretty names, but we've already decided on his name, I said with a giggle. His name is Heath. Heath, I love it. Little Heathy, can I hold him? Trish eagerly asked. I gently placed Heath in her arms. She had handled more babies than I had, so I trusted her. Hugh and I smiled as she played with him. But soon, Heath started crying. Here, let me have him. He's hungry, I said. Oh, nonsense. He's not hungry. He just wants attention, Trish insisted, trying to play with him as he cried. I looked at Hugh, confused. Mom, I think he's too young for that. Let Gwen take care of him, Hugh said, trying to intervene. He doesn't have to be hungry. I've got this handled, Trish replied, refusing to hand him over. Please, Trish, let me have the baby. Hugh will get you some water, I said, trying to remain calm. He's not hungry. His tummy is full. I can hear it, she said, shaking Heath gently. At that point, I lost my nerve. Heath started crying even louder, and I managed to snatch him away from her. Trish reacted oddly, trying to hold on to him, but I held firm. She made faces but kept to herself afterward. This was just the beginning of her odd behavior. She would always try to play with Heath, even when he was sleeping, which was incredibly frustrating. It would take me hours to get him to sleep, and she would wake him up the moment I looked away. She took no responsibility and ignored his crying, insisting that all babies ever wanted was attention. Food and sleep, according to her, came second. Sometimes it's 2 hours before they get hungry, she argued. Trish, Heath is only a few weeks old. He needs to be fed and sleep regularly, I tried to explain. Oh, you new mothers think you know everything. No wonder kids these days are so spoiled, she retorted. Her silly arguments and refusal to attend to Heath properly made me feel like she was using him as a plaything, only keeping him around when he was fun. I decided to talk to Hugh about this, but he wasn't happy with the way I was talking about his mom. He wasn't around much when she played with Heath since he was usually at work while I was on unpaid maternity leave. I wish I could have had paid leave, but my employers weren't very kind, I lamented. I've already used up my 12 weeks of paid leave, and now I'm exceeding them. Hugh, can you please try to get along with my mom? She's been through a lot and probably just wants to bond with Heath. I do get along with her, but she acts weird around our kid. Do you know, last night I woke up to Heath crying, and she was just standing over his cradle, staring at him. I almost had a heart attack, I confided. She said she wanted to play with him but knew I wouldn't be okay with it, so she was just standing there looking. It was scary, I added. The situation was becoming increasingly difficult, and I knew something had to change for the sake of my son's well-being. I know she can be a bit strange, but that doesn't mean she's going to hurt Heath. Just be a little nice and persuasive, and she'll melt away. She's easy like that, soft-hearted like you. I really don't know about this, I said, my anxiety mounting. Heath was too young for a nanny, and taking him to work wasn't an option. I was a barista at a local cafe and couldn't afford to be away for long. Just having Hugh's income was barely enough to make ends meet. The future worried me. Originally, I liked the idea of leaving Heath with Trish while I was away, but now I realize how bad of an idea that could be. One day, while trying to get Heath to sleep, I heard loud noises from my room. Trish, who had been napping in there because we only had one bedroom, was stomping around, looking distressed. When she noticed me peeking, she swung the door open. You think I should talk to my lawyer again? She asked abruptly. Talk to your lawyer? For what? For my baby, like the one you have. I think I can get her back if I try really hard. Maybe I could file a lawsuit against Tommy and prove he's not reliable for her to grow up with. Tommy was her ex who had custody of their child. I felt sorry for Trish. She was clearly in a terrible mental state, but I had to warn her about the potential consequences of her actions. Trish, that's a reach. Even if you manage to prove Tony incapable of raising her, you won't get custody because that would mean both parents are considered unfit. She'd end up in the foster system until she turns 18. But then you can adopt her as soon as she goes up for adoption. You can bring her to me and everyone will be happy. You keep yours and I get mine. Trish, no offense, but you sound like you're losing your mind. You need to relax and let go of this whole baby thing. You need help. Are you calling me crazy? Me, the mother of your husband? Do you know what I've done to raise him, the sacrifices I've made? And now you're taking this baby away from me. He's my baby too. Since when are we talking about Heath? If you want your child back, the only way is to be real and legal. Maybe you should get some help and then prove you're capable of joint custody. Don't lecture me, you're just a barista who caught my son's eye. You won't make a good mom, not like me. What's with you? We let you stay in our home because you had nowhere to go, and this is how you talk to me. I'm sorry life hasn't been great, but lashing out at me won't help. Shut up, I'm leaving, she screamed, coming so close I feared she might hurt me or Heath, but she didn't. The custody decision had clearly affected her deeply, warping her thoughts. When I told Hugh what happened, he got mad at me for letting Trish out on her own when she wasn't thinking straight. He didn't believe me when I told him she'd been obsessing over the baby situation. Later, she came back home, saying she'd been sitting on a park bench all day, though it had only been a few hours. She apologized and receded into the room to nap. She asked to help put Heath to sleep, but I was cautious. I wouldn't let my baby in her hands without supervision. Things didn't get easier. After this, there came a time when I knew I needed to get rid of Trish for good. Things really took a turn one day when we were caring for a sleeping Heath. How much do you need to spend to care for a baby these days? Trish asked. Oh well, the diapers, other care accessories, and the cradle all cost a bit. Around $100 for the first month, give or take, if you're lucky. Baby-proofing the house after they start walking or crawling can also add up or require some creative solutions. Why? I asked. Do you have something on your mind? Oh, nothing. It didn't used to be so expensive back in the day when I had Huey. Still, I wouldn't hesitate to have a baby. They're complete angels until they start crying. But yes, I'd give anything for little Heath. So would I, Gwen. So would I. I'd be willing to give up anything for our baby. Her calling Heath our baby felt oddly uncomfortable, but I tried not to dwell on it. Days passed quickly, and Trish began going out regularly every evening around 5 p.m. She'd leave the house all dressed up and with her purse. I doubted she was seeing someone new at her age, so I figured she was just taking walks and trying to look good. Honestly, we were supportive of her improving mental health. Her behavior with Heath also became more normal. She no longer acted weirdly, would give me the baby whenever he cried, and even helped make his food and buy diapers occasionally. I was relieved she was finally feeling better and more like herself. I was even considering leaving Heath with her when I went back to work, which was going to be soon. But then one day, I heard her playing with Heath in the living room. I'd been taking care of him all day and was exhausted. I tried drifting off to sleep, but Heath's cries woke me up. As soon as I got to my feet, he became quiet. Then I heard Trish. That's a good boy. That's a good baby. You're mine, okay? You're my baby, and Mom is going to take real good care of you. We're going to go flying away to a nice place where you'll have nice toys to play with. Don't you want that? I wondered how much of what she said was true and how much was just play. When I fully woke up, I realized his cradle had been moved from my room. The cradle wasn't very heavy, but the thought of her moving it without waking me was unsettling. When I moved into the living room, my heart skipped a beat. The cradle had been modified, and she'd hung massive Christmas balls on top of it to distract the baby. They looked pretty, but they were made of glass and could have fallen on his face at any time. I quickly rushed over and picked him up quietly. What are you doing? He's enjoying it, Trish said. Trish, where did you get these Christmas balls? I found them in your storeroom. I thought he'd enjoy them. Trish, those are really heavy. Not for us, but for the baby they are. How did you tie them up there? They look like they could fall at any moment. Hey, what's with all this constant accusing? I got the baby to be quiet, and you're still not happy with me. I appreciate that you got him to be quiet, I really do. I'm happy that you're getting along with him, but these balls are dangerous. His older plastic toy wheel wouldn't hurt him if it fell. How did you even get it down? I thought it was attached to the cradle. Oh, I ripped it off. It didn't take much. This is so much prettier. I don't see the problem at all. I understand, but please, let's take it off, okay? It could hurt him. Don't put the old one back on. It looks too weak to hold anything. Trish made a face and pulled the Christmas balls away. As soon as she touched them, 2 of them fell straight into the cradle, leaving impressions on the bedding. That's where my child could have been. Her intentions were good, but her methods were dangerous. She left us in the living room and retreated to my room to sleep. Afterward, she became a bit detached from me. Every morning, she'd go out and not come back for hours. Every time I asked where she was going, she'd reply, "Just the post office. I'll be back soon." The central post office was far from our place, but not so far that it would take the whole day. She continued whispering strange things in Heath's ears whenever she had the chance and smiled at me weirdly when I was around. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, I opened up to Hugh again. I told you, she's trying to get better. Why aren't you being supportive? Hugh said. She still acts oddly around him, telling him he's her baby and repeating her own name so he would say it first. You already know about the Christmas balls. I'm concerned. No, you're overthinking this. She's taking care of our baby. Yes, the Christmas balls were a slip-up, but you handled it, and she won't do it again. Okay? You need to help her get to the post office for whatever reason she's going. I've asked. She just says she'll manage and goes away, not coming back until evening. Hugh, she's obviously not going to the post office every day. Why would she? Because she used to work there and has friends there. Maybe she's gotten herself a part-time job. Then why would she tell us about it? I don't know. Look, just relax and stop keeping an eye out for my mom. She's innocent. There's no need to incriminate her. That was it. I kind of lost it when he refused to believe me, no matter what I said. The time for me to start going back to work was approaching. I knew this moment would come sooner or later, so I decided to prepare. Without letting anyone know, I installed the baby monitor in the wall, hidden from plain sight. When both Hugh and Trish were out, I got it set up. When I started working, Trish began staying home. Most days seemed normal. She'd take Heath away to play and then put him back to sleep. I was only working part-time, so I'd be back before it was too late. But one day, I heard her talking to Heath on the baby monitor. "Oh, we're going to fly away, Heath, me and you. Mama has been working so hard at school. Teaching little kids like you will be someday. Oh, Mama has so many plans once she runs away with you." I heard Heath giggle and coo as she picked him up and spun around the room. "My baby, oh little baby. Do you like spinning? Do you like it? Of course you do. We're going to go far away from your little cradle. I'll get you a new one with big shiny balls on it, and you'll have a pretty mom, unlike your mom. We'll make Daddy run away too. Yes, we will. Yes, we will." What was going on here? She continued spinning around the room for a while. When she finally sat down, Heath started crying. Within moments, she put him aside on the edge of the bed and held her own head in her hands, as if she had just gotten vertigo from playing with him. My soul almost leaped out of my body when I thought Heath was about to fall off the edge, but she picked him up just in time and put him back in the cradle. "You keep crying, and I'm not giving you any more attention. In my house, you'll earn discipline from the get-go. Children these days, I swear to God," she said and slammed the door. I was starting to get really concerned. I had recorded the whole footage and considered sending it to Hugh, but I had to make sure I wasn't being delusional. That day, I went home early, worrying about Heath. Trish opened the door for me, looking all worn out and tired. She yawned and without saying a word, went back to sleep in her bed in the living room. I rushed into my room and quickly fed Heath. He cried for a bit but then fell asleep again. He wasn't quite taking to the bottle yet. Once things were quiet, I locked the room from the inside and began searching. Trish always kept a big red purse with her whenever she went out. I had to find it. After rifling through my room for almost an hour, I found nothing. Where could she possibly keep it? Curious, I went outside and saw it hanging from the coat rack. I grabbed it, making as little noise as possible, and lo and behold, she had been speaking the truth. She had a teacher's ID card for a school and a plane ticket in there. The ticket was scheduled for the day after tomorrow. I was blown away. This woman had been conspiring to run away with my child. I kept both items to myself and sent the video to Hugh, asking him to come home as soon as possible. This can't be real. Oh, for God's sake. Still think I'm overreacting? I asked. Hugh held the ticket and the ID card in his hand after watching the footage. He was completely speechless, but now everything had become clear. Trish had worked for months to save up enough money to make these arrangements. She clearly needed a lot of help. Hugh didn't have a word to say in his defense, but he said, "We'll need to call my father." Jonah picked up the call quickly. When Hugh filled him in, the conversation was quite saddening. But one thing was for certain. We had to get rid of Trish. She did not belong in our house. "You think you should leave her in a retirement home?" Jonah suggested. "That's what I do. I don't know. I think she needs to be put in psychiatric care first," Hugh replied. "So the bottom line is you want her out of the house for good?" Yes, please." "Okay, well, I'll come over to talk to her in person. Let's get started." Jonah had been around when Heath was born. He and Trish would butt heads over the smallest things, so it was a bit uncomfortable, but he showed up anyway. Hugh and Jonah talked to Trish, and there was a lot of crying and yelling. "He's my baby." "No, he's my son, Trish. You need to get out of here before we have to forcefully remove you." "Oh, I'll see how you remove me." I had lost my patience by then. Trish had done so much to anger me that I wanted her out of our lives for good. "You will never set foot in this house again. Just go away. Keep your hands off my son." Enough. The two of you. "Mom, please don't make this complicated. Come with us," Hugh pleaded. The fighting continued for a while. Finally, we decided to place her in a retirement home for good. The people at the nursing home said they'd give her some psychological help as well. I didn't care anymore. I tore up the plane tickets in front of her and called the school she worked at to let them know not to have her close to any kids ever again. I may have overdone some things in my anger, but it was all necessary.